That looks like Chuck Huffer.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Would it be better if I put a mic on, or is this okay?
I don't know. It's just me, Mike Berger. I'm not the moderator.
Thank you.
I think that's probably going to sound okay, to tell you the truth.
It sounds okay?
I think it does. The moderator may have a different opinion. I'm used to Zoom sounding just like you're sounding right now.
Thank you so much. Are you one of George's childhood friends?
No, we're one of his friends. We lived in Thousand Oaks until 2008, and our kids went to school together, and I was on the board many years. George, I joined in '84, and George came on the board in '90. So
I knew a John Berger that was in Thousand Oaks who I grew up with, and I thought you might be related.
Oh, no, no. My relatives are in Southern Ohio.
Great, thank you.
And how do you know George, Ron?
I went to school with him in high school in Van Nuys, and we've remained in friends for a long time.
So he was the innocent, nice guy that he brags about being?
Well, as I'm going to mention, is that he was a poor sport. He never let me sit near him during a multiple choice test.
What kind of friend is that, you know?
Yeah, we were on the same track team and did other things together, but we actually got to know each other better as we got older, went to reunions, and then he had a national conference in Asheville, and I have a place up in North Carolina during the fall. So he came up to visit and with his wife, Judy, and then we continued to do things together. He's a remarkable individual.
Yes, George is a very good man. And our families were friends. Like I said, we lived in Thousand Oaks for many years. And for a long time, we were in the same neighborhood, Green Ridge. But yeah, he and I have been on many commissions together between the Park Board and MRCA and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. We've been to many meetings together.
I don't know how you guys do that. I mean, it's just so busy. I mean, you're just going all the time. It's huge dedication that you have. Growing up in the San Fernando Valley, of course, we go out to Thousand Oaks. That was miles and miles away. And but I remember that area very well then. And of course, I get out there every now and then too.
Yeah, well, we moved to Texas in 2008, so we come back about once every few years. So then we often see George and Judy when we come back.
Nice. Where are you in Texas?
We're north of Houston at a place called Montgomery. We're on a nice big lake called Lake Conroe.
Nice. I had the opportunity to sit in on a lunch in Houston at the NASA Center. And I just sat in mission control. It was great.
Rumor has it that parts of the space shuttle, the one that fell apart over Texas, are in our lake. So who knows?
Well,
Rory Skay, how you doing?
Hey, Mike Berger. You haven't changed.
I've changed my shirt, my underpants. I've changed a lot of things, Rory.
Okay.
I mean,
Good living in Texas. Huh?
I work out 3 days a week.
Wow.
Not bad for an old guy. So how are things going with you and your family, Rory?
Pretty good. Evan is on a strike team up in Lake Oroville on the North Complex fire. But other than that, and my daughter is not working at Amgen anymore. She works for the trade desk and is working from home, as all we are.
Hi, that's Gary Hauser. I've known George for like 75 years, so I'm going to have a few words to say about him.
Oh, good.
We can record this if you'd like, Gary.
Okay. I am so bad at this. I'm with my son because he's the one that's helping me get all this stuff. I don't know how to operate all this stuff. He's a principal at a school, so he's having to work with his Zoom all the time. But me, it's new to me. I'm kind of a tech dumb.
tell us about that background behind you.
Well, we fixed that up so it looked like I do live in San Clemente, but I'm not really I don't really have a beach house quite like that.
Shoot.
Now your name is still Gary, otherwise it turned into Sir real quick.
Yeah, I wish it was my place. I'm close to the beach, but not that close.
Well, I'm on the water here in Texas, and I'll tell you, it's interesting because when we moved here from Thousand Oaks, the house prices, the house we bought on the lake was considered expensive, and it was cheaper than the average house price in Thousand Oaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when you leave California, it's very difficult to come back.
I have to share with you, I live in a gated community with a Jack Nicklaus golf course. My neighbor across the street had 4 bedrooms, a Florida room, swimming pool on the golf course, a beautiful place. And he sold it for $210.
Wow.
That would buy a garage in Southern California.
Hey, Mike, did you know Marjorie Meachin?
No, I don't recognize that name.
What was your business?
I was a school principal in Thousand Oaks, Newberry Park, Westlake, and then also in Moore Park.
Okay, there was a Mike Berger who handled some of her finances, and that's my mother-in-law, and his name was Mike Berger also.
That if I did good, if the person did good, that was probably me. If they were a crook, that wasn't me. Don Robinson, how you doing? Besides being muted.
There we
Who
go.
you talking about?
Hey, Don.
Hi, Rory. Good that we're all here.
Yeah.
That
Go
Mike,
Edmiston.
Mike Berger from where? Texas?
Texas. The heart of Texas.
Do you work at pronouncing that?
My wife gets real mad at me. And by the way, Joe, conservation is a little different down here.
I can imagine.
We can't recycle. It's very difficult to recycle here. And they charge you for recycling if they feel like picking it up.
Oh,
My pleasure to call to order the September 17th, 2020 meeting of the Caneo Recreation and Park District Board of Directors to order. And at this time, we're going to begin with the flag salute. And the individuals leading the flag salute this evening are my daughter Megan, granddaughters Brooklyn, and granddaughter Peyton. You're more than 6 feet, so you can forego the mask.
Hey, I didn't want to be caught on camera. Please stand for the flag. Please put your right hand on your heart. If you are a veteran, you may salute. Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, Aline, roll call, please.
Director Lang,
Here.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Director Holt. Here. Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Cussworth.
Thank you, Aline. With that, we're moving on to item number 3, special presentations. And with that, I'm going to pass the gavel on to Vice Chair Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I take this gavel for very good reason. We have some special presentations and special guest speakers this evening for a very special reason. And I will start with Charlotte Holyfield from CSDA, actually physically present here, California Special Districts Association. So she has a special announcement award for us. So thank you for being with us this evening, and please proceed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chairman, and good evening, Chairman Lang, board members, staff, and guests. I'm Charlotte Holyfield with the CSDA Public Affairs Field Coordinator for the Coastal Network, and I'm very pleased to be here to present not one, but 2 awards to you this evening. The first award recognizes districts for their public outreach, including developing communication pieces that are appealing with creative, thorough, and appropriate content relevant in communicating the district's programs and services. The district's Connecting the Community Through Unprecedented Times program certainly fulfills all of these requirements. As a Ventura County resident, I know the tragedies and challenges we have experienced in recent years. Wildfires, the terrible borderline shooting, and now a pandemic. But during this time, your district has been a consistent, stable resource for the community in a number of ways, providing essential services such as the Senior Nutrition Program, the Safe Passage Lunch Program, food share, and ongoing blood drives. These programs are essential not only in a practical sense, but also for the social and emotional well-being of the people that they serve, from seniors who may have little to no interaction with other human beings, except for the few minutes a day they pick up their meals, to teens receiving gift cards to show they're not forgotten, and to unemployed parents not having to incur the expense of diapers and formula. The range of services that your district has provided is comprehensive, and the community engagement efforts you have undertaken during this era has also been expansive and thoughtful. From colorful activities in local media, print and social, to creatively substituting virtual events for in-person ones with ideas like homemade dog bone recipes, plus delightful ding-dong ditch surprises. The district has remained true to its mission of enriching the quality of life for the community, even when that enrichment wasn't in person. A virtual rec center, preschoolers learning online, Zoom concerts with student musicians. You have pivoted to the virtual world, keeping programming vibrant, engaging, and relevant to the community's needs. For all of these reasons, your district is highly deserving of recognition. So on behalf of the board and staff of the California Special Districts Association, it is my honor to present the Conejo Recreation and Park District with the 2020 CSDA Large District Exceptional Public Outreach and Advocacy Award. Congratulations.
I'm going up the next time.
You're coming this time. So I'll step back.
Actually, I'll say something really quick here. this, because I know she'll have an opportunity to address George at the next item, I did want to take this second to say how proud I am of the frontline staff of the Canal Rec and Park District. As I watched the teary commercials over the unfolding of the pandemic about how essential frontline workers were putting themselves in harm's way by really continuing to serve the public. They'd often show healthcare workers, of course, and police and teachers and whatnot. But, you know, some of the folks you didn't often see were the folks that are like cleaning the public restrooms or continuing to maintain all of our parks, or the rangers out still stopping and talking to people on the trails, rescuing them even when they're not supposed to be on the trails. The staff in the recreation division who never hesitated to try new things and, you know, figure out how they can continue to fulfill our mission and serve the public. So this really, to me, is something that is for those frontline staff workers that are out with the public, doing everything they can to serve them. So on behalf of the board of directors and the GM, thank you to CSDA for recognizing us for that. Thank you.
Before I can let Charlotte continue, are there any comments from the board that wanted to respond to Charlotte or anything regarding the award? Mr. Lang, Mr. Chair?
Well, the board is always proud of our staff and the work that they do, even when there wasn't coronavirus. It is a excellent staff. Everybody works together, and it's like a family. And if you're ever at some of our recognition events, you'll realize how close we are. And so this award during this pandemic does not surprise me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Huffer.
Jim really said it all, that the fact that the district is getting this award is nice, but it really is all the people who are out in our parks, in our buildings, in our various facilities. These are the folks who really deserve this recognition and deserve this award, because they're the ones who are making our district successful every single day, 365 days a year, and they deserve all the credit in the world.
Thank you. Director Cusworth.
I'll just add a couple of words. I was overwhelmingly impressed with the creativity that came from the recreation staff, to where they could have basically just shut down, but they thought of creative and innovative ways to still, you know, make programs work for our community at a time when the community really needed it. And and then also our staff was doing all of the things of maintaining the parks at this time, because our parks were being used more than ever because people needed to be outside. So as again, they're always doing these things, but they really stepped up, and I feel that the staff at CRPD highly deserves this award. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Holt, did you have anything to say?
No, I concur with everything that's been said.
Okay, thanks. Well, I just wanted to add a few comments as well, certainly supporting what's been said. But as I've kind of reflect on the last several months, and I think one of the comments made was the term pivot, which I think is probably a term that Rochelle Callis is all too familiar with, because every week it's pivoting a new direction to respond to some other guidelines or direction. So my hat's off to Rochelle and her entire team, because I know it's been just a topsy-turvy 6 months and trying to make this work. And I know even with our maintenance staff, has been a bit of a challenge, you know, maintaining parks when there's a little different clientele out there and different groups and different things happening. But then also even with the administrative staff and looking at the finances, which, you know, were pretty much predictable year after year, then all of a sudden it's not. And so just trying to pivot in all these different directions, very much appreciate that. And I think what also has astounded me with some of the comments that were made as well is, in a recreation world where there is lots of creativity, people are always kind of coming up with new ideas. And yet year after year, there's a lot of similarity of the way things happen. And so this, I think, kind of created something that was obviously out of the box. And the staff certainly stepped up and created some things that were outside the box. And so I think that underlying creativity was able to bubble to the top in ways that hadn't been imagined before. Hopefully we never have to use that again, but if we do, we know how to do it and how to apply it. So thank you for again, our frontline workers, the faces that meet the people out in the community. Very much appreciate that. And I think this award definitely is a recognition of their efforts. And please extend our thanks to the CSDA board and staff for that recognition. So thank you very much, Charlotte. So next up, please continue.
The next award recognizes an individual who exemplifies excellence as a board member in the areas of experience, effectiveness, and leadership. Director George Lang is an outstanding example of these qualities. George has been on the Conejo Recreation and Park District Board of Directors since 1990, elected 7 times, is currently serving as chair. He has now been chair of the board 5 times over 30 years, overseeing the creation and expansion of many programs and facilities in enhancing the district's presence and mission in the community. In addition to his service on the board, George has had a tremendous role in open space preservation in the Santa Monica Mountains and Greater LA area. Since 1990, he's served on the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy's Advisory Committee and on the board of the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority. In 30 years, the amount of acreage owned or managed by these entities has grown from 7,000 to 80,000, creating open space and natural parks for all of Southern California and worldwide visitors to enjoy. Recently, George used his expertise and leadership to help start and serve a brand new Joint Powers Authority to acquire and preserve open space and trails, a partnership between the City of Moorpark and Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. And along with open space preservation and parks and recreation issues, George has shown great dedication to special district issues in general. His 30 years on this special district board exemplifies that, as does his tenure as president of the Ventura County Special Districts Association and as chair of Ventura County LAFCO, where he served on the commission for a decade. For his devotion as a board member to CRPD, his service to special districts as a whole, and his range of community activities, on behalf of the board and staff of the California Special Districts Association, it is my privilege to present the 2020 CSDA Board Member of the Year Award to Director George Lang. Congratulations.
Wow. And I thought my days of recognition were over. I didn't expect it. I'm sorry, I'm emotional. But it's very special, and it means so very much. I have, as many of you know, received a number of recognitions over the years, and my wall and the office are covered. And but it's something like this that brings it to the top, that makes me think about, I've been able to provide leadership and experience to help other organizations succeed. It's a team effort, and I just happen to be a member of the team. As we all, over the years growing up, are members of soccer teams, football teams, etc. And you're just one person who contributes, and it's through the contributions of others that make you successful. So, and this board is a perfect example of a team effort in providing me the opportunity to be successful in certain aspects of our purpose as a rec and park district. And in fact, one of the speakers this evening that I've asked to be here, Mike Berger, one of our previous board members, contributed so much. And again, thank you. I hope that my contributions have made a big difference in the lives of other people. And I'm just very blessed to have my family here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George. And, you know, as George mentioned, there are some past board member and others that wish to say a few words to George. So I'm going to ask them to do so before we have the board speak up. So I have an order of list here that General Manager provided. We're going to start off with the General Manager, Jim Friedel, on behalf of Denny Gillette, I believe. So, Mr. Manager Friedel.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Nichols and members of the board. I actually stand here on behalf of Dennis Gillette. And this is a big deal award. I mean, CSDA is an organization that serves the 40 million people in California and I think over 1,000 member districts. So to be the Director of the Year is no small accomplishment. So, but Denny did minimize it, I will say, when I spoke to him. Denny, as you guys know, is a former City of Thousand Oaks Police Chief, CRPD board member and chair, City of Thousand Oaks council member and mayor. And he really wanted me to note that it's his family and George's family are dear friends. Terry and Judy and Megan and Lisa have been friends since the girls were playing soccer together, so over 40 years. Denny regrets he could not be on the Zoom call, but he did say this to me. He said, "It is okay that George served in the Navy because not everyone can be a Marine." And in all seriousness, he said, "George is one of the most decent, honest, forthright people I know. He has a true passion and calling for public service. The Conejo Valley and Southern California are better places to live because of George, and I'm proud to call him a dear friend. Congrats, George and CRP, on your award."
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, Jim, for conveying that.
Thank you. Next on my list here, I have Joe Edmiston. Is Joe with us? Oh, I see him there. Yes. Mr. Edmiston, welcome, and please introduce yourself and speak up on behalf of George.
Whoops, you're muted.
You're muted. Okay, there we go. You're still muted. Okay, now we'll try it.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
So I can't speak on behalf of George. He does a very good job of that himself. But I can speak on behalf of all of the staff of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, the Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority, and more importantly, the people who come before the various boards and who appreciate the even-handedness and the fairness and the judiciousness with which George conducts the meetings. And I think that that's very important, that the public face of these bodies represents the best of our civic engagement. And George, that's what you do. You represent the best of our civic engagement. And, you know, I tell our staff, by the way, George is an engineer. He's got a technical background. So please make sure that your sums add up because George will be there adding everything up. And I don't know many organizations that have their warrant register combed the way George does. And he will say, you know, this one and this one doesn't add up. Well, that's because we had to issue a refund. Oh, really? Why did we issue a refund? Well, because of business. And George, it can sometimes be tedious, but we all know that there is someone who's looking over all of our shoulders, and so the public can be sure that nothing's going to get by the board of directors of the Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. And I also want to say, George, you have brought a whole new dimension to my life. I neither served in the Navy nor the Marines, but I feel that I've served in the Navy because, you know what, 2-3 times a week I get something from you saying, oh, isn't this cool? And I, you know, I look it up and it is pretty cool. Sometimes it's, frankly, George, a little trivial. On the other hand, sometimes the stuff is genuinely cool. So keep it coming, George. Thank you so much. On behalf of everybody that interacts with you on the part of the public, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for those kind words. Next, we have Ms. Rory Skay. Rory, can you hear me? You ready to go?
Yes, yes, indeed, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
And George, heartiest congratulations for this extremely well-deserved honor. Really, you are the paragon of civic virtue. And obviously not just in the Conejo Valley, which and your involvement is legion. You're on everything. But of course, as has already been described, your participation in the park and open space projects throughout Southern California. And I love how you have always taken such a huge interest in our parks that are downtown, Pacoima Wash. You're really interested in serving the greater public. And I love that. And of course, you are a good soul, a sweet person, the best hearted person I know. And again, thank you so much for your involvement with Sopwith Trails, another great achievement of the district. So hats off to you, George.
Thank you so much, Rory, for those kind words. Next, we have Mr. Don Robinson. Don, are you ready to go? Can you hear me?
I'm ready if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Well, Judy and George have been known to I and my wife, Betsy, for years. But we commenced working directly with George when I was appointed by the Westlake Village City to represent that city on the Conservancy's Advisory Board in 1992. In 2002, I became the chair of that board as elected by members and re-elected every year since. George was the chair before me, and he agreed to serve as the vice chair and has been elected to that position every year since. He and I, as previously mentioned, serve as the Conservancy's representative to the MWPRCA. I always have to look this up so I get it right. The Moore Watershed Parks Recreation and Conservation Authority, which is a joint power between the Conservancy and the city of Moore Park. His leadership qualities, very briefly, have always been abundantly evident. He is aware of all the activities in each organization that he's in and active on them. He creates an ambiance of open dialogue between these groups and the communities they serve. He's developed a style of management that is cooperative to members and compassionate for the issues for which they're involved. His elderly status is a fine example of a person that continues, never complaining, and just carries on. And we have all benefited by his continuance. And we heartily endorse what he's doing and as receiving this award, we are very pleased with this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Don. Appreciate your kind words. Next, we have Mr. Mike Berger. I see you up there. Mike, good to see you again. Please speak up if you can hear us.
I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you.
I just want to start by saying I'm so glad that George and I both have improved our skills since we first met when we coached 5-year-old soccer for different teams. That was not very successful for either of us, but George, you've moved on. I was a neighbor, not a neighbor, but lived in the same neighborhood as George for many years. But we really got to know each other much better when he became a member of the CRPD in 1990, and we had an opportunity to work together many times. And on his 30 years, he spent 30 years on the board, by the way. This is his 30th year, according to my calculations. that he's been on the board. So he is second only to one other person as far as length of time on the Conejo Recreation and Park District Board of Directors. So congratulations on that too, George. But since he's been on the board, board of directors of the CRPD, he immediately jumped in both feet. And if I recall, was on the Santa Monica Mountains Advisory Committee, and then was also on the MRCA. And so he has spent so many years working on all of these issues that deal not only with Thousand Oaks, Conejo Valley, but Southern California, all the way. I mean, it's been fantastic, George, a well-deserved award. I'm very proud to have worked with you. I'm very proud that our families remain friends to this day, even though we're many miles apart. And I will say, and Joe would appreciate this, and Rory, that conservation's a little different down here in Texas. Let's just say that the first time I tried to throw an aluminum can in the recycling, they told me that this state's big enough, we don't have to worry about that. So George, thanks for all the great work out there. Still love California and still love all my friends from Southern California, and a well-deserved award, George.
Thank you so much, Mike. Next, we have Dr. Ron Gilbert. Okay, I see you there, Ron. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, to all of you, thank you for all the service you provide the community. I've seen your work when I was out in your area, and I'm so impressed. It's a privilege to attest to George Lang's exceptional character and accomplishment as a leader. George and I have known one another since high school. In school, he actually did his homework. In class, I wanted to sit near him when we had a multiple choice exam. I tried to teach him sign language, but he seemed to have difficulty mastering it. He was then and is now a man of inspiring faith. Consistently throughout his life, George was a high energy person. I think he was the original Energizer Bunny, always smiling, a happy kid. He was the leadoff member. This will surprise you. He was the leadoff member of our 440 relay team. I still see him churning as he assured us a pole position at the handoff. He ran as though he could not let the team down, and you see that in him now too. He also was a fine running back on the football team. His marriage to an obviously much younger wife, Judy, seems to have been made in heaven. They are a great team, and tonight is her recognition too. When a lifelong friend and high school roommate of mine passed away, the family asked me if I would speak at his funeral. He was like a brother to me. Unfortunately and very painfully, I could not attend that funeral because I had to be in Panama. I called George and asked if he would speak on my behalf. I wrote the message to my dear friend, and George delivered it. George stepped up and did such a good job. For that, I am forever grateful. Those attending said, "Ron, it was your best speech delivered by George." I am a student of leadership. I teach it at the university and I study it. Leaders come in all sizes and types. I've observed George on site. He is a classic servant leader. He is also a most effective problem solver, which I heard you talk about. He cares about his community and his people and our precious environment. He enthusiastically takes every opportunity to serve others. He loves to invite others to sit down over a cup of coffee. Beware, he drinks a lot of coffee. George, thank you for all that you do for the community, your friends and family. You are a once-in-a-lifetime role model for us all. Clearly, you have made your special district, parents, friends, and family very proud. Knowing George has changed my life. Thank you, George.
Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you for the kind words. Next on my list is Ed Tiratilli. Is Ed with us?
I'm here.
There we go. Okay, you can hear me. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm here. As a person who first enjoyed the benefits of the Canal Valley, going to the Saturday night dances on Hendricks with Casey Kasem in the 60s, I've been in the area for a very long time, and I've had the pleasure of meeting lots of leaders over the years, both in law enforcement, in city government, and in the special districts. And it is without question that our friend George, and I mean that sincerely, is one of the highest level of executives for competency, but more importantly, for integrity. He is not just a leader, he's a mentor. And he's one of the few people, no matter what position he's talking from, makes you feel like you're an equal. That is a very difficult quality to find in all people. At this point, I just am not surprised that George was the recipient of this award. He thoroughly deserves it, and it is my pleasure to call him my good friend. Thank you, George, for all that you do for all of us.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Gary Hauser. Gary, are you with us? Okay.
I am with you.
Okay, please, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've known George for 75 years, and I've got to say that a friend that if I needed to trust somebody or to depend on somebody, he was the one. We met in the second grade in a one-room school in the basement of a church, Van Nuys First Lutheran Church, in the basement. And there's one room, 6 grades, 1 teacher. And since I enrolled a little late, he was one of the ones that helped me adapt to this kind of a unique situation. I didn't come from a school like that. But the school obviously provided us with good education because we were both able to move on into the public school system and do well. After school started, we saw each other almost every day. During school, we were together. On Saturdays, we had Bible class and YMCA together. On Sunday, we went to church. During the week, we went afterwards. We went to school. We'd bike ride to each other's house. His mother and my mother were like mothers to both of us because we were together so much. We did some crazy things. We took bike rides over several of us, and we went over to San Savannah Pass one time, and it's uphill. And in those days, they didn't have those bikes that they have now that you just kind of step on it and it goes. It's electric. So George, I got to blame George. He saw this slow-moving hay truck going up the hill, and he said, "Let's grab onto it." And so we grabbed onto this truck, and it pulled us up the hill. I don't know for sure if it was his idea. Probably was. In the summers, we spent time up the Kern River. We swam, fished, hiked, did rapids, danced. It was great times, great times. He helped out at the gas station. My dad worked he was a pest control operator, and George and I worked with him, helped him out. We did concrete work, carpentry work, construction work. So we did a lot together. We went to different high schools, but we still kept in touch through the church youth groups and choir. We double dated quite a bit. Fact is, he even took my future wife, Lori, to his prom, his senior prom. I don't know how I let him get away with that, but at the time we weren't going together. When we graduated, we took a 2-week car trip, just the 2 of us, and we just got in the car and went on the western states. We went as far as Minnesota and St. Louis, Missouri, and it was a great trip, and we bonded real well there. George joined the Navy, and I did the Air Force. And even though we kind of went our separate ways, we got together many times, and especially for special occasions like weddings. I was at his wedding. I think he was married like 6 months before I was, and he was at my wedding. We were at each other, our sons' weddings. We both have a son and a daughter. We were at each of those weddings. So he is a person who is able to, or he has that ability to organize and have friends keep together. For example, a couple of months ago, but maybe it's been a year already now, he got the some alumni from Van Nuys First Lutheran, our elementary school, and we met at a place in Redlands, and we reminisced about old times, and that was all George is doing because he's one that keeps track of everybody and helps us get those things. I do know that if I ever needed anything or if I depend on anyone, I can call him. Everybody has said that he's an outstanding person. If you had to trust or depend on somebody, he's the one. You may have noticed that I didn't recall any of the dumb or stupid things we did. That's because we just never did anything dumb or stupid. We always were on the up and up, never did anything dumb. Right, George?
Yeah, right.
As he is one of the most upstanding and honest, sincere people I know. I don't know of any other persons I can say that about. Sure there are, but he's very honest, sincere in everything he does. You can say in 75 years, I can say in 75 years, I heard nothing but praise for the things he has done. And now that's something. I'm glad and honored to have been your friend for all these years, and I hope we have many more years to go. And congratulations on your award. I am not aware of all that stuff that you were doing because I'm not living in that area, but fantastic job from what I hear. Wish you well, kid.
Thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate the good words. Thank you so much. Next, I wanted to recognize George's family who's here with us. We have Judy, of course, his wife. And of course, hearing all these wonderful things about George, I could say that either he learned it from Judy or Judy learned it from George because they replicate all those qualities so nicely. And then we also have a son, Kirk, and daughter-in-law, Nora, and grandson, Emmett, and then daughter, Megan, and son-in-law, Tommy, granddaughters, Brooklyn and Peyton, who helped us with the pledge this evening. And I believe we wanted to have them come up to the podium with George. Am I understanding this correctly? Have we got the?
I don't know, do we need George or just the family?
Just the family?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be Kirk and Judy, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. The podium is way over here. You're gonna have to really run. Okay, there you go.
If you'd won this award a few years ago, I would have been pleased. Chairman Lang, board members, staff, and guests. Not long ago, I read a quote in a local publication. I should actually attribute it to Director Huffer. It rang especially true for me. Thank you. It said that George Lang's fundamental interest in elected office was, quote, parks and open space and how it impacts his children and his grandkids. Other voices, Dad, have spoken to your contributions to the wider community. I want to briefly acknowledge how your impactful work has, on a personal level, been transformative for your kids and grandkids. You saw how athletic fields and parks and the programs and events they made possible shaped Megan's childhood and mine, from soccer fields to softball diamonds, music lessons to family gatherings. With the next generation in mind, you have worked tirelessly over 30 years to expand facilities and opportunities for the wider community. Trips to the park, swim lessons, and the many connections to nature that you helped nourish for Brooklyn and Peyton in their early years gave them deep interest in learning about and protecting nature that persists to this day. Today, parks, pools, and trails in the Caneo have made possible shared memories and much needed connections to the outdoors for all your grandchildren, Brooklyn, Peyton, and Emmett. During this pandemic, CRPD has modified facilities and programs, as we've heard, not just so users can feel safe and responsible, but to make possible the spaces and moments that provide crucial anchors, connection points to childhood in these very unsettled times. It's not just your family, of course, that is the charge of CRPD or the focus of your concern. CRPD constituents bring a vast array of interests, needs, and stories. The dedication you bring, whether to the inclusive and accessible programming of ride-on therapeutic equestrian programs, or the partnership you've helped cultivate with the Chumash Indian Museum and the Chumash people, who are the original as well as the ongoing stewards of these lands, or to the development of multi-use parks that speak to different user needs and priorities like Sapwi Trails, reflect how deeply committed you are to this entire community, and the work of CRPD in enriching those lives. And I should say it's not merely this official work in board meetings and ribbon cuttings and behind the scene collaboration with staff that's impacted your kids and grandkids. It's also your personal love of the outdoors, which we've just heard about from people who've known you for so long, of open space, of the animals and landscapes that your conservation work in the Santa Monica Mountains and beyond works to protect. When you take your grandkids to their favorite parks, show them the latest camera trap image of a mountain lion, encourage them to climb trees, or tell them how to differentiate an adult coyote call from that of its pups. These are the things that will inspire your grandkids to deeply care about building community and protecting nature. These kinds of personal commitments and public leadership are crucially needed in this moment. And they just might inspire 3 particular kids to advocate for these things long into the future, just like their Grandpa George. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirk. Very thoughtful and kind words, so thank you so much.
That resonated.
Yes, yes. Judy.
That's me.
All right. Good to see you this evening.
Yeah, I'll try and make it short after all of those sharings of tributes, but I was going to say that for all the years that I've known George, and that's many, he's been volunteering, working, giving of his time to areas of need or organizations where he saw that it was important and valuable to do. When we moved to the Caneo in 1965, it was that little town that was just beginning. And so there were many opportunities for ways that we could help in the direction and growth that we wanted as the environment for ourselves and our families to participate and be involved in. And so we joined that group of people that looked at those ways that we could participate. And we found ourselves in schools and our church. George was involved in the YMCA and Kiwanis. And then after he was elected to CRPD, things became even more involved with all of the organizations that he was involved with there. Within CRPD, he took a special interest in the therapeutics as well as the initiation and the support of safe passages. And also important to him was the Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority, MRCA, as well as the role for many years with special districts, the California special districts and the local as well. In that time, in those years, he's felt privileged and honored to be a part of it all. Thank you. And I know he does too.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Appreciate that. I think, yeah, I think we got a little something there for you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Judy. Now, before I let George say a few words, I want to invite the board members to say a few words if you wish. So, Mr. Huffer, you want to start? We'll start at this side. Okay. Director Holt, please go ahead.
Well, I've probably been on the board longer than anyone else here. And it was interesting because
George and Denny Gillette came and talked to me about running for the Caneo Rec and Park Board. And I had been involved with Rec and Park for a while, long time with different things, but not on the board. So thank you, George, for that. And George has been fantastic. I don't know how many times he's been chair, but many times. And he's very knowledgeable, and he conducts a great meeting. And I mean, everybody said wonderful things. I could go on and on, but thank you, George, for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And I'm going to interject something you mentioned about Denny and I meeting you for lunch.
Yeah.
And it was at the time that I can't remember the exact situation, but he always ragged on me for my having him pay for our lunch.
Oh, I don't remember that. Anyway, it was a great introduction. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Huffer.
George, I can't think of anybody more deserving of the award that you've received this evening. At the moment, none of us can get over to any of the recreation centers that we have around the community, but if you ever get a chance when the Global Center does reopen, in the back hallway there, I believe along both walls, there's a timeline that shows the entire history of Caneo Recreation and Park District. And although you might not see it there, you can see George's fingerprints and thumbprints throughout much of that history. The parks, the programs that we have are in large part due to what George has done. But as earlier speakers have already said, George has been involved in so much more in our community than just CRPD. From the time he and Judy first moved here, they've been active in sports, in their church. I know he was a leader with Caneo Valley Days for years and years. He was in Kiwanis, involved in AYSO soccer, a lot of different activities in our community, and continues to be involved. When I think of George, I don't think they have the program anymore in the middle schools, but for years there used to be a program called Just Say No. George would have flunked that program because George has never known how to say no. And not only does he volunteer for so many different activities and so many different boards, but he's taken leadership positions in all of these activities. He's chaired CRPD, I believe, 5 times. He's been as already pointed out, leadership role with the local special district association and the state association. All of the boards that he has been on, he's not just been there, but been an active participant and a leader in all of those boards. George has always and continues to be a font of great ideas. Someone mentioned, I think Judy mentioned, that he was one of the early proponents of one of my favorite programs that we're involved in, that's the Safe Passage program. My recollection is that there was you hosted a meeting in your home with Denny and some of the others.
3 meetings.
3 meetings, which got Safe Passage started some years ago. As I said, one of my favorite programs. George has wonderful ideas. Most of them have worked out very well. And when he gets an idea, he follows through, and then he twists your arm to take part of it. Some years ago, we were talking about the Caneo Valley Days and the Caneo Valley Days Children's Parade. He said, boy, wasn't that fun when our kids were little? He said, let's see if we can do that again. George said, okay, let's do it. And he twisted my arm, and we tried it for 3 years and didn't have huge turnout, but it was fun. It was fun. So as I said, George has been successful in almost everything that he's tried with great ideas. The only lack of success that I can think of, George, when you decided that you and I should team up for the cornhole tournament a couple of years ago.
I remember that.
That didn't work out real well. I think we got limited.
You had to bring that up, huh?
We did have fun, but we didn't do very well, but we had a great time with that. So again, George, I can't think of anybody more deserving of the award that you're receiving this evening. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all you are. Thank you personally. When I joined the board 8 years ago, it was you that really took me by the hand and taught me the ropes about how to succeed with the Canal Recreation and Park District. So thank you very much, George.
Thank you very much. Director Cusworth.
So George, I haven't known you very long. I think I've known you the least of anybody here. But you said you hoped that your service would be a positive effect of the families in Canal Valley. Now, I've lived here for about 39 years, and you were on the board for 30 years. And you've had, or Canal Valley, CRPD and you have had a huge positive effect on my family. And I didn't even know you were there doing all of this work. The trails, the parks, the different programs highly benefited my family. In fact, the reason I wanted to run to be on the CRPD board is because I wanted to be involved with the best of Thousand Oaks. And I thought CRPD was the best that Thousand Oaks had to offer. But little did I know that when I came on, that I would also be associating with the best people, such as you. You are a kind and good man. And I have learned so much from you in just these 2 years. And I'm very, very proud that I can be considered to be associated with you on this board. So thank you for all of your service, George. And I have to say, and thank you, Judy. I can remember the first time I met you when I went to a dinner, my first one, and you were so sweet and came up to me and welcomed me. And I know that behind somebody like George, there's a very supportive spouse. So you're a very good person. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm just going to start off by saying when I grow up, I want to have the energy of George Lang.
When you grow up?
When I grow up, yes, when I grow up. So much has been said of George, and I just would check mark and say, yeah, I was going to say that, I was going to say that, but I do have a few things I want to say. George, you're genuine, you're the real deal. There's no question that when you say something, it's from your heart, you're honest, you're sincere, there's no malfeasance, you have no ulterior motives, and I appreciate that, so thank you for that. As we think about this as being a CSDA recognition, and it's a statewide organization of multiple special districts, Recreation and Park is just a category. I mean, we have port districts, we have cemetery districts, we have health districts, fire protection districts, watershed districts. I mean, it just goes across. Charlotte could list another dozen that I'm forgetting, but they're across the board of the variety of districts, which I think is just a testament to George and his effort to reach out. I think that's one thing that he does. He's like an ambassador. He's always reaching across. He doesn't have this myopic view of what's right in front of him. He's always looking out there. Okay, where can I reach out to extend our influence or to help somebody else out? And so, being active in our Ventura County group and going to the dinners with and learning those different avenues that others are taking for their efforts, the George is always supportive of that. And I think it's, again, just a testament to your ability and your understanding of what others are doing in their realm. It's not just what's around this table or in this district. It goes well beyond that. Again, some of your daily work is that way as well, I know. But you certainly have a foresight in so many aspects. I also appreciate your mentorship, as Director Cusworth mentioned. I also noticed that you take copious notes in your agenda, and that's before the meeting has ever started. That when I look at your packet, you have scribbled it all up. And then it just goes from there as the meeting goes on. I mean, it just shows how much time and passion you have for what you do. One thing that I will always remember fondly is our Water World bus trip that we took last fall, courtesy of the Metropolitan Water District, where we flew up to Las Vegas and then took this 3-day bus ride down the Colorado River and across the aqueduct. And it was my privilege to sit alongside of you that entire trip and just share thoughts, share ideas, share, again, new things, because this was not a rec and park district activity. This was a water district activity. But you knew so much about that, and you knew so much of, and you knew so many of the people that we were with, because and they were from the whole county area and beyond. And I just was so impressed with that, you know, again, it's a tribute to your knowledge, but also your passion and your, again, reaching out across borders, boundaries, and disciplines. So appreciate that. And so thank you so much for that. And I look forward to continuing to work with you. Next on the agenda is to George, but I just want to know if our general manager wanted to just add a few things, because I know you did have a chance to speak at the podium, but this being a little more specific to George and what he represents. And I just have a feeling over the years that you've had a few conversations with him, maybe even one-on-one. Maybe you could just share a few thoughts with us.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nichols. I'd had the opportunity to talk to the Acorn newspaper and say a few comments that are published there, and I think it boiled down to observing George and his role as a board member is that he is a bridge builder, a uniter. He doesn't come with a hard, specific agenda that he will try to do whatever he can to make his view the one that carries the day. He's the kind of board member that really wants to incorporate everybody's thoughts as we discuss an issue and get to a resolution that, you know, is maybe not everyone's perfect solution, but is something everybody can kind of grab hold of and support. And as the general manager trying to work with 5 different people with 5 different ideas, having somebody there wanting to keep us all together is actually my kind of ideal board member. And George, you've always been that way. And like other people said, kind, decent, honest, high integrity. So George, I just have greatly appreciated being able to work with you and what you've done with the district. Thank you, George. And thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Chair Lang, I'll even give you a few minutes to say a few things. So please go ahead, take your time.
Oh, wow. Everybody who participated, contributed, made mention, et cetera, you're wonderful people. And it's just a privilege to have been associated with you in the various capacities that we find ourselves in. I'm listening to some of those individuals who spoke via Zoom. I'm sure they could have said a lot more, and they probably held back a lot of things. And I'm going to, on the record, Gary Hauser, the individual I've known since the 2nd grade, and he talked about the car trip we took, and we switched off driving. It was just the 2 of us, and we were going through Joplin, Missouri. I was asleep in the back seat, and Gary was driving. And he says, "George, wake up." I said, "Why?" He says, "There's red lights behind us." I said, "What?" We got pulled over, and in Joplin, Missouri, it happened to be a speed trap. The officer asked for Gary's driver's license and took it, and he said, "Turn around and follow me." So long story short, Gary and I found ourselves in jail. It was Gary who the officer was, focusing on. But anyway, there have been many different experiences. Oh, by the way, we got out of that situation with no problem as long as we paid the fine for. Oh, I won't go into a lot of details, but and paid for a lawyer for the next day and some bail money. So I think we got out of there for a couple of young kids. We were like $65, $75. And it was one of those lessons learned that when you're going through certain areas, you got to really pay attention to the speed laws, et cetera. But again, everybody who has said such kind words. I'm just trying to be me. That's the way I was born and raised. I have been blessed in so many ways. And it's those individuals that I've known for many years and have known me in sports, as Ron Gilbert mentioned, Ed Tiratelli and our coffee days, etc., that I'm just me. I don't want to pretend to be anybody else. I put on my shoes and shirts, it's like everybody else. But the important thing is doing the right thing and knowing if you do the right thing and you're honest, you know, you get by in life without hurting people or making people upset. So I can't say enough. I don't want to take any more time because people know that I sometimes get carried away. Thanks, Chuck. But I love you all. And this has been a very rewarding, gratifying, and thanks to CSDA, Charlotte, and please thank Neil, special guy. And thank you and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I want to thank all of our guests who joined us via Zoom. Thank you for participating. Thank you for staying with us and making this a special occasion for George. Thank you for the family that has been here. And thank you for those outside in the outer lobby for joining us as well. Thank you. So with that, I will return the gavel to its rightful location and let our chair continue on with the meeting.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nichols. Appreciate your pinch hitting here. We have one more special presentation. Is that still on the docket for it is the Teen Center and Global Adult Community Center update for the City of Thousand Oaks. And who's going to be making this presentation?
They're coming in.
The rec staff that'll be making the presentation are being ushered into the room, and we'll see who it is in a minute. Please do. This is not just.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do a little timeout, Mike.
We're gonna take some quick photos with the chair and his family with the backdrop.
Good idea.
On either side.
For those listening on Zoom, we're going to take about a 3 to 5 minute break so that we can take some photos of the Director of the Year from the California Special Districts Association.
Look at the camera.
Tommy, come too. Come on. We'll do it real quick. Get your, we want to see you. Take a few just in case. Hiding behind the balloon. Thank you. Sure, why not? Quick. Okay, thank you very much. We gave everyone a break. Thank you.
Another one.
No, these are great.
This is the same.
What's that?
I think Doug's got Joe's chair. See, but the rest of you
Should we
have-
ask somebody about the balloons?
He's got a comfortable.
He's got Joe's chair.
This is ridiculous. Maybe there's a way to tilt it back, but
I thought they're all the same.
no, they're not.
Joe had, you know,
Do you want them back?
Yes, yes.
Oh, me getting them back?
Okay.
But like what we've been
Is that
saying,
what's going on?
these chairs, the most expensive chairs.
Yes.
They suck.
Charlotte,
I can't lean back.
you okay?
They're not
So
good.
I'm like this.
You know, I now that you mentioned, I think I was in one of those.
Well, I
before.
guess I can lean back.
This one feels really low.
Yeah.
You got the blues?
It works.
Well, I guess this one loosened up because I wasn't able to lean back before. Did you just loosen?
Sorry about that, Mike.
Oh, no worries. Still not. He told me that nobody wants to sit in this kind of chair.
Okay, why don't we proceed with our presentation? And I see Mike's up at the podium. Go, Mike. At the mic.
Mike. Hi, Mike.
How are you? Good evening, Chairman Lang, members of the board, Mr. Friedel, and CRPD staff. My name is Mike McAdam. I'm Recreation Coordinator at the Global Adult Community Center. I'm also here with Julie Spivak, the Director of the Caneo Senior Volunteer Program, and Sarah Dobbs, Teen Services Director at the Alex Bury Teen Center. City of Thousand Oaks and the Caneo Recreation Park District have a long-standing history of providing the residents of Thousand Oaks with high-quality community service and recreation programs, all designed to create the quality of life in the Caneo Valley. The Global Adult Community Center has provided a community of outstanding senior services, programming, and special events for the past 29 years at this location. Above and beyond programs and events are social services we provide for our seniors, some of which are blood pressure checks, hearing workshops, on-site senior advocates, veteran services, will preparation, and many, many more. Some of our day-to-day programs include art, badminton, bingo, of course, dance, language, support groups, table tennis, writing, and there's so many more, we couldn't list them all. And of course, we could not do any of this without our partners. The City of Thousand Oaks, Caneo Senior Volunteer Program, Senior Concerns, the Global Senior Center Commission, the Ontario Agency on Aging, that's a mouthful, and so many more. We truly could not do this without our partners. And now here's a snapshot and the day of the life at Global Senior Center. In 1 year, we served just shy of 104,000 people in 5,800 programs. Now, I'd like to introduce the director of the CSVP program, Julie Spivak.
The Caneo Senior Volunteer Program helps place adults age 55 plus at 75 partner agencies in and around the Conejo Valley. CSVP has close to 1,000 volunteers who serve approximately 180,000 hours per year. During the 2018-19 year, 169 volunteers served 34,000 hours with the City of Thousand Oaks. These hours were served at the Civic Arts Plaza, the Council on Aging, the Disaster Assistance Response Team, the Thousand Oaks and Newbury Park Libraries, and with the volunteers in policing. According to Independent Sector, the total value of these volunteer hours equals $865,000. CSVP volunteers make thousands of handmade items per year, including stroke aprons, mastectomy bags, Afghans, and hats, which are donated to partner agencies, including Los Robles Hospital, Mary Health of the Sick, James Storehouse, School on Wheels, America Supporting Americans, and many more. During COVID, they have utilized their artistic talents and have made over 3,000 handmade masks, which have been donated to 26 local organizations. The Caneo Senior Volunteer Program's free income tax program is in cooperation with the IRS, and it is in its 30th year. This typically takes place at Conejo Creek South Community Building and the Newbury Park Library from February through April. 45 volunteers serve over 5,300 hours during tax season, and prepared 2,311 free tax returns in 2019, bringing over $1 million back to our community. Volunteers had completed 1,100 tax returns by March 12th when we had to suspend the program. We are very happy to be able to reopen this service at the Goebel Center for 23 days from June 15th to July 15th following strict CDC guidelines. Tax preparers were able to complete 700 more free income tax returns. Many local seniors expressed that this was the first time they had been out of their house since March and how relieved they were that we were able to reopen. CSVP oversees the Senior Nutrition Lunch Program, the SNP, which typically takes place at the Goebel Center Mondays through Fridays from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This grant-funded program through Ventura County Area Agency on Aging is for seniors 60 plus. Lunch is a $3 donation, and no one will be turned away for inability to pay. The Goebel Cafe creates an engaging, safe space for seniors and socialization. Our lunch program generally includes 32 volunteers serving over 2,300 hours per year. In 2018-19, the SNP served 13,046 meals. From July 1st, 2019 through March 12th, 2020, we served 9,538 meals. When COVID began, we changed the congregate meal program to a pickup delivery program, which takes place Monday through Friday from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. From March 13th through August 31st, CRPD staff have served 19,251 meals. Thank you so much. Now I would like to introduce Teen Services Director, Sarah Daub.
The City of Thousand Oaks and Conejo Recreation and Park District's unique collaboration leads to a very successful facility to serve teens in the Conejo Valley that are at least 12 years old and in 7th grade up to age 17. As you might recently remember, in the fall of 2019, the Thousand Oaks Teen Center celebrated its 30-year anniversary, where we also unveiled the plans of a new capital improvement project for the center to get a new backyard area, featuring a lighted outdoor basketball court, amphitheater, and a skate plaza. Although the project has been postponed, we can't wait to see it back on the calendar for construction. Also recently remodeled was a 9-station computer lab and a gaming wall. The funding provided by the city allows the Teen Center to operate 7 days a week with extended hours on non-school days and the summer months. We are able to provide our community teens the cool and trending equipment and programming. We now have a video to show you of all the awesome things that we should have year round.
Mama said, fulfill the prophecy, be something great. Go make a legacy, manifest destiny. Back in the days, we wanted everything, Mama said, burn your biographies, rewrite your history. Light up your wildest dreams, museum victories. Every day, we wanted everything, Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. All tied up, no more love, and I'd hate to see you waiting. Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars, but I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a time, but I always had a vision, always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living, didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had high hopes. Mama said, something for oddities, stranger possess. Ain't ever wanna be the winning the novelties. Don't ever change, we wanted everything, Stay up on that rise, stay up on that rise, never come down, oh. Stay up on that rise, stay up on that rise, never come down. Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. All tied up, no more love, and I'd hate to see you waiting. They say it's all been done. So I got one more run and it's gonna be a sight to see. Got to have high hopes for legend.
This concludes our presentation. In closing, we would like to thank the city for the support and allowing us to serve our community. We are looking forward to reopening our facilities to the community, but we'll continue to serve how we can in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, Mike, and Julie. We know we've got a class teen center, and I can remember going to state conferences when people would come up to me and say, "You're from the Conejo Rec and Park District, you're the one with this fabulous teen center." And that's been many, many years ago. And we maintain the quality, the programs that are just phenomenal. That video, told it all. So thank you for your presentation. And now any other board members like Director Nichols?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. While you are here, I just wanted to repeat something that I've said a number of times over the months as we've gone through this, is just thank you for keeping things going as best as possible. I talked earlier about pivoting, and I know this has been quite a challenge, especially for the centers where, we can't have congregations of people per county order. And yet, that's the essence of what those centers are for, is for people to meet and have social activity and engagement. And yet I know you're still trying to do whatever we can. So thank you for your efforts. I know it's been frustrating, and you try something and then a couple weeks later you have to refigure out how to make it happen. But again, thank you all, because I know you have done an outstanding job. And I know with the meal program, I've seen Julie out there and that whole effort, which continues to go, been a real blessing to the community. So thank you all for your efforts and making that happen for us.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Any other directors? Yes, Director Huffer.
I'm just going to be very quick. I want to thank the three of you for your presentations. And I know that the three of you and your staffs are just absolutely dying to get back to normal, so that all the great programs that you have offered in years past, we can start offering again real soon. So thank you all very much for what you and your staff do.
Thank you, Director Huffer. Director Cusworth.
I've always thought I'd never want to be a teenager again. Those are kind of hard years. When I was looking at that, I thought, wow, they have all the fun. That looks like a great time. I wish I could borrow one. Yeah, I was wishing that when I was growing up, I could have gone to some of those things. But fortunately, I qualified for the Global Center. And so I can be doing things there too. And, just a wonderful, wonderful job that you're all doing. Just another wonderful part of CRPD. So thank you. I know you work hard.
Thank you, Director Cusworth. Any other directors? Well, I'll just again reiterate the reputation that we enjoy throughout the state. And again, it's because of the work of you three and other staff members and previous staff members, et cetera, that have made it what it is. And we're so proud of you and so proud of the program. So keep up the good work, especially when we can get back to work. So thank you and have a good evening. You're welcome. All right, we're going on to item number 4, items from the public. Do we have any, Mark, do we have any public online?
So you can you converse with Sean to find out if he wants to speak now or wait until the item? Sean, do you want to speak now or when we get to the item and do the...
Good evening. Thank you, Jim. I'll wait. We'll wait to the item. I'd like to hear the presentation.
Thank you so much for being patient.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other public, correct, Mark? All right, we're moving on to item 5, approval of the agenda. I entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Director Huffer, and a second, Director Cusworth. Any other comments or questions associated with the agenda? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 6, consent calendar. Items A, approval of the minutes from the September 3rd meeting, and item B, approval of the warrants with all those figures, dollars, etc. I'd entertain a motion if you're Director Kessler.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the warrants.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Hupper.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to note that I'll need to abstain from the minutes portion of that since I was not in attendance at the last meeting.
What's my understanding? That's your option, but it's my understanding that's not a given. So if you've read the minutes and don't see any errors, but we'll take that as an abstention and when it comes up. Any other comments associated with it? If not, all in favor of consent calendar A and B, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We have one abstention, correct, Director Nichols?
Yes, just for the minutes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. A and B pass. Item 7, deferred matters. We have no deferred matters this evening. We're going on to item 8, items for discussion. CRPD update regarding COVID-19. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, Chair Lang, members of the board. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I do know we have at least 2 people waiting for our actual meaty agenda item that we'll have. So really quick, we have no additional COVID cases within the CRPD family. That's great news. Knock on wood. Ventura County remains in the purple category, but I heard the CEO of the county, Mike Powers, today say on a Zoom meeting that he thought in the next week or perhaps week after, if the trend continues, that we should start the clock to move from purple to red. So I'm 3 to 4 weeks before we might get into the red category, maybe. No change in our facility use and permitted activities, which means what? Parks are open, trails are open, community centers are closed to general public drop-in. They are being used for student day camps, our quarantine programs. And then gatherings are generally prohibited unless it's for a specifically allowed purpose that the county decides on. We are doing a picnic in the park tonight. It's actually over by now because it's dark. But at Conejo Creek North, we are partnering with the Chamber of Commerce and some restaurants to do that picnic in the park program, which is great. The Halloween guidance came out from the county. And as of right now, it says Halloween trick-or-treating is not recommended. Gatherings are not allowed.
They changed it.
Yeah, originally it was prohibited and then they changed it to not recommended. So it's kind of a, I think, parent use your own judgment. That does affect our main Halloween attraction, the Reign of Terror Haunted House. I did share with the board an email exchange. We have been orally told that pretty much the Reign of Terror as retail is not likely to be allowed, though I've put out an email seeking sort of a an appeal of that oral decision and a decision in writing. Of course, the reason for that, if you recall, in December when we worked with Bruce to move the Reign of Terror into the new retail space, we guaranteed his $70,000 a year loan. So that would be on top of the, if he doesn't operate, the money that wouldn't normally come in for his donation back to the Park District program. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that it might get reevaluated, but we shall see. And then just as a heads up, the governor did sign a couple laws that bills that are now law. COVID workplace outbreaks of 5% of a work site testing positive, that's considered an outbreak, and that will then be a presumed workplace injury under the workers' comp program. So that affects everybody, not just us. That affects all employers. And employers must now notify employees at a work site within 1 business day if there is a known positive COVID test result at the work site. And we've actually pretty much done that with the 3 incidents we've had. So I think that's nothing new to us. With that, that concludes my COVID update.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. We're moving on to item 9, new items. 9A, anticipated needs for additional parks in Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan area. Is Mr. Hare.
And before,
Okay.
yeah, before Tom kicks it off, he's really going to be Professor Hare this evening, but I do have a little bit of a setup, and it's going to take just three slides, I think. And you can start, just rest on this first slide. Really the purpose of this item, and by the way, we do have the Community Development Director for the City of Thousand Oaks and former COSCA Manager Mark Town on the line. And we also have Mr. Sean Meridian, who is the president of the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Association and proud, I guess, landlord of what's the brew pub? The new
Tarantula Hill.
Tarantula Hill. I don't know why I can't remember that. It's not like we don't have a Tarantula Hill in town. So hi, Sean and Mark. Thanks for being on the line. So as we get ready for Tom to go, I kind of want to set the stage a little bit and draw us way out, because Tom is going to get deep into the weeds on our master plan, on planning issues and terminology. I'm going to kind of take us way out. Tom's going to talk about things like parks and population ratios and the difference between a neighborhood playfield and community park, and Quimby fees and park dedication fees. And he's going to focus on the CRPD master plan, and specifically planning areas, one in zone 1 and zone 4. And really, he's going to talk about not only the parks today that we have, what we currently have in the planning pipeline, and how much, if any, additional parkland we may need. And we don't know the answer to that question. But I believe, now this is my opinion, and this is what I want and why we're bringing this to the board. You're asking for sort of our professional insight and recommendations as you plan for the Park District's future as the board. I believe that there are new homes in the foreseeable future to be built in Thousand Oaks. I don't know exactly where they're going to go. I don't know exactly when they'll be built. But I think it would be naive to believe that all residential development is over. Yeah. So, and why do I believe that? Well, because of workforce housing affordability, because of business and economic expansion needs, because parents do want to see their kids and grandkids live near their home. And then, as I've watched state legislation over the past few years, there is a constant barrage of state laws, both carrots and sticks, to encourage and even require cities to enable more housing. Like the most dramatic right now is the right for an additional dwelling unit. By right, every single home, single family home in Thousand Oaks right now could essentially add another unit. So the state really wants to see some more housing. So Tom will get into the weeds as to why that matters to CRPD, but I really want to start to talk about an assumption we make, and that is that everybody wants a park, or we kind of get lazy and just say parks make life better, and we just run with the assumption that everyone wants a park. But I really want to use my time right now to go through and say, well, why and how do parks make life better? So maybe we don't need a park, but I think when I get through this little short talk, you'll see that parks basically are an essential piece of infrastructure in any quality community. So what I'm going to kind of go through are going to be conclusionary sort of statements, if you will. But believe me when I tell you that these are taken from academic and scientific literature. Look at the NRPA, the National Recreation and Park Association website. They have a big, extensive library. The EPA actually has information. So the statements I'm making are not something I'm making up as opinion. These are based on factual information. You'll even look in our master plan and see a lot of the reasons why parks do in fact make life better. So starting with the first slide and health and wellness, parks improve people's physical and mental health. Natural areas and green spaces do have restorative effects and offer people respite and recovery from the daily chronic stressors of urban life. And they're just simply a fun place for children to play, for physical activity, learning about physical capabilities. Staying on the first slide, they offer conservation and resiliency to a community. So obviously for the protection of water, land, trees, open space, wildlife. An urban park may not have big swaths of open space like we enjoy, but there will be sections within urban parks that offer refuge for animals that do live in our area. Trees that are planted that will offer carbon sequestration and reducing urban heat island effects. And they just generally can help. A well-planned and thoughtfully designed park can help reduce flooding risk, clean and control stormwater, improve air quality, and again, enhance the wildlife habitat. That's my wildlife habitat slide. Next slide, we can go to visitor spending. Tourists and vacationers repeatedly and reportedly seek out park and rec amenities when they're looking to visit a place. They're looking at beaches, parks, trails when choosing a vacation destination. We're very familiar with our sports users that, you know, families will spend whole weekends here spending money on gas, hotels, restaurants, and retail while their kids are doing big sports tournaments. In terms of property values, economic research has consistently found homes and properties located near parklands have higher values than those located further away. And they also improve quality of life. And that quality of life, which is sometimes hard to articulate, is a significant factor. Business executives will say quality of life is a significant factor for major businesses locating where to operate. So it does enhance the overall economic development of a region. Next slide. Parks can improve or promote social equity because if you think about it, there's fewer and fewer places that all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, age, income level, physical ability, have access to free public places and facilities like a public park. They just simply make people's lives better. And of course, we're able to add, because of the kind of agency we are, inclusion and therapeutic programming into the park system that we do have. Just two more. They offer supportive environments for kids. This is pretty much what everybody thinks of and understands as a park. It's a playground, the kids run free like crazy people. It's great for parents to relax. But the rec programs that we offer in parks and through our park system can be a haven for at-risk kids. You know, not every kid is fortunate enough to be raised in a very stable household. So there's abusive, unstable, and drug-addled households. And our rec programming and our park facilities can help be a refuge for those folks. And then they do offer alternatives to, say, gang involvement by offering programs, activities, and places for kids to be involved in something enriching. And finally, parks do enhance a sense of place or a sense of community. I actually do have an urban planning degree, and I can remember one of my professors really hammering the notion that good urban design isn't about the buildings that you're building, it's about the space and the feel of the spaces in between all of the buildings. And that's what his definition, at least, of what good urban design was all about. It's how do you feel and are you enjoying the environment you're in when you're in an urban area. And so it offers those backyard amenities in higher dense communities that they may not have access to. They can provide ample space for picnics, meetings, gatherings, and even just a place to walk your dog. They offer a place for political speech, civic action, and peaceful protest. And, you know, as a general rule, a place for gathering, not maybe smiled upon in today's world, but hopefully when coronavirus is over, a place for gathering and social, cultural, and civic entertainment events. So that is why, and that is how parks make life better. And how do we do that with our plan. Mr. Hare, Professor Hare will go into that.
I will try my best. Thank you, Jim. What I'm going to start out with is we're going to kind of go through, I've got about 15 more slides here. Feel free at any time to ask me a question. I'm going to try to walk you through the thought process of where we came. It kind of give you a little history on where we were and where the community was and what the thought process was with the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. Like Jim had mentioned, we do feel that there's going to be more housing in Thousand Oaks, and it's quite possible it's going to be on the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. So then we'll tell you where we are currently in the situation where our park deficiencies are throughout the district, and then what are the potential challenges that we could face if some of these things happen, and then how we go from here and go forward with that. So again, anytime you have any questions on anything, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to explain it. But again, we'll go back a little bit into like the building blocks. So we're going to start out with the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan, which was adopted in 2011 by the city of Thousand Oaks. Wonderful plan. It was an award-winning plan. It's to, straight from, from the quotes there, it's to revitalize, beautify, create mixed use, and a pedestrian-friendly area within Thousand Oaks Boulevard, within Thousand Oaks Boulevard between Duesenberg and Moore Park. It provides entertainment, shopping, and residential, and it provides a foundation for the future of the area, and it will provide benefits to residents, visitors, and all the businesses that are down there too. So it's an excellent plan that they had. And one of the great quotes they have is it's going to give a fresh look to how we're going to live, shop, and play in the future. And this is all part of, we're trying to look down and see what's going to happen there. So that was the purpose of, again, one wonderful document. And so this again was 2011. In 2011, the Thousand Oaks Boulevard contemplated 214 additional housing units on top of what was already there. And then in 2016, with the general plan amendment, they added another 206 units for a total of 420. And I'll go into a little bit more details as we go further on into the discussion. But then in 2017, the city did a Measure E analysis, and they came back with an unknown amount of future residential housing up to 5,040 units. So with that said, so we were basing our analysis before on what was accepted from the 214 to the additional 206. Now there's something in the future that's unknown. So I think it's prudent that we get together and figure out how we are going to go from here and what are the possibilities in the future and what we should do. So as Jim said, he very eloquently put that parks are essential. And he gave you a lot of reasons why they are essential. But just even think about this other way too. There's parks are essential for all those health, wellness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But think of it this way too. A lot of people think when they're thinking about development, they go, oh, we've got to think about the sewers, and we got to think about electricity, and we got to think about water, and what's this going to do to the roads, and what's this going to do to traffic. Usually that's the very first thing people think of. How can we handle the additional housing units that are going to be out there? But you know what's also just as important is the parks. What kind of parks are going to be there when those new houses are developed? Because we believe, and I think the community believes, that parks are very essential to the well-being of the communities and new residents. We've experienced it many, many times where we've been very familiar. New park coming soon. Residents were promised in that neighborhood that a new park was going to be built. When's it going to be built? When's it going to be built? Because they want to get there. They want to utilize it. The developers promised them that there's going to be a new park down the street. So it's been something very high priority on the list of our residents and throughout the whole state and the nation. Parks are, like I said, they need to be adequate, available, and accessible, and as Jim mentioned, and of course, especially in the more high dense areas, they don't have backyards. They need some place they don't have a private backyard where they can hang out. In high dense areas, it's very essential for them to have them. The master plan, another one of the building blocks that we need to understand. The master plan, the city's general plan was first enacted in 1970, and our CRPD master plan followed in 1975. We had a couple of updates since then. The last one that we did was in 2011. That was the last time we did a comprehensive update after the 2010 census. And then we're looking for the city, we're trying to work in parallel with them. The city is doing a general plan, comprehensive review and update, and we're going to go parallel with that. But what the master plan does for us, the master plan tells us where people are currently living in the city and where they're possibly going to be living in the city. There's two different things here, existing population, and then the parks that we have, and the projected build out in those different areas. And so we rely heavily on the city for those calculations. So we try to look in the future, see where we're gonna have our parks. And one of the things our master plan has adopted is the national standard of 10 acres per 1,000 residents. And that way, it's an NRPA standard. And that way, if there's a concentrated residences over here, that they get a certain amount of park acreages, and it's a little more sparse over here because it's more industrial, they get less park. So we try to use that park acreage per 1,000 residents as a guide. And then we split those 10 acres into to 4 different categories. We have 5 acres per, of that 10 is for a district-wide park like Conejo Creek. 2.5 acres is for neighborhood parks. And 1.25 acres is for a play field, and 1.25 acres is for a community park. Now, we have split ourselves into 6 different zones. And so we try to, again, to move, have the park acreage spread out evenly throughout the district. And each park, each zone will have the correct number of acreages for play fields, community parks, neighborhood parks. Let's see, what else? Okay, yeah, so then we'll talk about, okay, so that's our guide. We talked about parks were essential, and we said, okay, our master plan tells us where these parks should be and what type of acreage it should be. So, well, how do we fund these parks? And this is through the Quimby Act, which it's been part of the California government code since 1975. It directs the cities that adopted, we're the beneficiary of it, the city of Thousand Oaks has adopted this ordinance, but it directs residential developers either land and or fees depending upon what they're developing, that they would owe the park district for that. So we've been very lucky or very beneficial in the past that the city has provided this for us and so the developers. So when new communities are built, new park acreage is also in that same general area. So it's really worked well for us throughout the years. And then lastly, and just kind of give you some, like how successful it has been. So, this is give you history. Again, parks are essential. We have a guide and we have some money, we have some acreage. So some very good examples we've had for that recently in the near, 15, 20 years is Dos Vianos Ranch and Rancho Conejo. Now, Dos Vianos Ranch, we had about 2,000 units of 2,000 housing units. In Rancho Conejo, we had about 1,200 units. And the success for both of those was, I think, it was the collaboration between the elected officials from the public agencies, from city staff, from the park staff, and from the developers and property owners. They got together and said, for lack of a word, hey, here's a blank canvas. I want to build some houses here. How can we get this? And the park district said, okay, well, I'm going to need, how about a park here? And how about this? And yeah, so we all got together and worked collaboratively and successfully did it to provide some excellent park acreage for the community. And the residents are the ones who benefited, and it makes this place a great place to live. And on top of that, and even more success for these master plan subdivisions of Dos Vianos and Rancho Conejo, they provide those landscape maintenance districts, those assessment districts that we provide. So in addition to the developers providing the acreage, and by the way, too, the developers also built those parks. We didn't build those parks. they have provided money for the maintenance and operations ongoing for those parks. Because again, because parks are very essential. Let's see, so, but, you know, that was great. These are success stories, right? This is awesome. Why can't we just keep on doing this? There's some challenges that we have on the boulevard, or just pretty much anywhere throughout the city, is, you know, with the TO Boulevard specific plan, unlike Dos Vientos and Rancho Caneo, there's numerous property owners and developers. It's not just us or the city talking to one developer and saying, let's work this out, or even a few developers. There's numerous. So that's a challenge in itself, to get everyone in one room and get everyone on the same page. What else is challenges that we have there? Lots on TO Boulevard, it's already developed. You know, so acquiring and improving land is not easy. There's not just vacant land owned by, you know, that they said, oh, here, go ahead, have it. You can use this as a park. So, you know, that's also a huge challenge for us. And as we mentioned before, whatever we do, you know, there, and whatever if these multifamily housing units in general will have no backyards for family recreation, where in Dos Vientos and Rancho Caneo, nearly all of those developments those units had backyards. So again, it was through these are the differences between Dos Vientos and Rancho Caneo. So, okay, so let's get a little bit more focused here. So let's talk about Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan in itself. So if you notice the big numbers there, the big numbers in the circle on the right-hand side, that is planning zone, or excuse me, zone number 1, and the little 3, that's planning area number 3. So TO Boulevard specific plan goes from, you know, Moore Park Road all the way to Duesenberg. It's the yellow there. So it stretches across 2 of our zones and 2 of our planning areas. So it's zone 1, planning area 3, and zone 4, planning area 12. So the existing parks that we have already in those zones and planning areas that are developed, we have Glenwood Park, we have Stella Park, we have Beyer Park, El Parque de La Paz, and Russell Park. So that's what we currently have that are already developed. So if we take a look at our master plan, and I mean, you have this in your sheet, so I know you probably can't see it off this, but this is, I believe, Exhibit 2 on your sheets that you have. But I also gave you handouts if you want to follow along. But using the 10 acres per 1,000, and 5 acres of it is district-wide park. And we're not going to talk about district-wide acreage right now because it's fairly impossible to increase our current district-wide parks. But again, 2.5 acres is for neighborhood parks, 1.25 is for playfields, and 1.25 is for community parks. So if you look at zone 1, okay, come over here. So this is the way you read this. If you're looking at, you want to go to this one? If you're looking at this is community zone 1, and if you're looking for planning area 3, you can see currently we are 5.6 acres deficient in neighborhood park acreage. Right now, existing, we're 5.6 acres. And based upon projections from the 2010 census and working with the city, if you go to planning area 3, we're projected to be 8.3 acres deficient because the population will grow. This is again from back in 2010. Then if you look at zone 4, planning area 12, we're 14.8 acres deficient. We've always only got Glenwood Park and Camp Creek Southwest Park, which is not developed. You know, at this point, is not developed. And then if you look at the projected build out, we're 15 acres deficient in neighborhood parks. And we're also deficient, if you can tell, we're deficient 15.2 acres in playfield and community parks, 16.4 playfield and community parks at build out. And then we're zone 1, playfield 1.4 and 13.4 community parks, and then 4.7, 16.7 respectively for playfield and community parks. So that's where we are now, just now. Any question? You guys follow that? Yeah. Okay, just making sure we follow that.
So this is a page right out of our existing master plan.
Right. This is a page right out of our master plan.
So this information is 10 years old at least.
Yeah, it's 10 years old. And an interesting thing too to think about too, some of the things that sometimes it was kind of hard to wrap my head around the first time I was reading the master plan 15 plus years ago or so. Think of it as remember the Russian nesting dolls?
Mhm.
So that's a good example. Okay. Yeah, I got a chuckle. So if you look at like over here, let's use the examples of North Branch Playfield and Triumphville Community Park. If you live next door to a community park, as you can see, if you look up here, Triumphville Park is also in planning area 1 for neighborhood parks. The community park has a neighborhood park in it, and it also has a playfield in it. See how it counts for both? If you look at neighborhood and the playfields, because it counts for both. Because it's got both, it's got aspects of neighborhood parks, and it's also got aspects of a playfield in it. So like in me personally, I live next door to Pepper Tree Park. That's my neighborhood park, right? Because it has the same aspect. And same thing with North Branch Playfield. We take it down one more notch. North Branch Playfield is not considered a community park, but it's also considered a neighborhood park. It's also in planning area number 2. So again, it counts for both of those. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Hare,
yes,
Tom.
sir.
On that, I noticed on your table, or your table, so for playfields, PA1 Triumphal Park, you showed 23.4 acres total, but as far as developed, it's blank. But up above, under Triumphal Park, you have,
That's a typo, yeah. It should say 23.4.
oh, okay, so that should still qualify.
I didn't want to correct something that's already printed, so.
Okay, so that's already, all right.
Yeah, you are correct. It's just for whatever reason we didn't put that number.
All right, so it would be considered that. I thought maybe it was only considered in one of the categories.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
We're good? Okay, so then let's move on a little bit. But we just said we've got Canary Creek Southwest, right? That's part of this. So we're going to make a conservative assumption that Canary Creek Southwest is developed. Because it's about a $4.5 million project. It's in the hopper, it's ready to go. Melissa's printing out bills as we speak right now in her office, churning out recently 20s or less. And so it takes a long time to get it out there. So we're getting it out there. So we want to consider Canary Creek Southwest as part of this because we feel it's imminent. So how does that change how does that change this what you just saw? Right? So let's throw that in there. Let's make some assumptions. So what happens is it actually bumps up because the Canary Creek Southwest is over here. So in bold, and I apologize, and for some of the text was omitted in the staff report, but this is exhibit.
So now you're looking at page 41
38.
in the packet.
38.
Exhibit 3, yeah.
Exhibit 3.
Oh.
Now we're looking at page 41 in the packet, Exhibit 3.
Okay.
Because this exhibit is assuming Canal Creek Southwest is completed.
So we're looking at, we're modifying this excerpt from page 413 from the master plan, modified to show that Canal Creek South is developed. We're assuming it, because I think it's a very safe assumption that it's going to be developed. Because number one, we own the land. So it's up to us to find a way to develop this park. And that changes the numbers fairly significantly, and I put it in bold, but as you can see, because that's another 14.1 acres of developed neighborhood park, and that increases the development park acreage, and it takes down the park efficiency to 0.7 acres, and then it takes the neighborhood park efficiency in planning area 12 and build up to 0.9 acres. So it helps quite a bit. So again, this is just something. It's a safe assumption. That's all I'm making right here is a safe assumption. So if we go to the Tito Boulevard specific plan, again, like so we talked about, it was Tito Boulevard specific plan was adopted in December of 2011. It was amended twice in May of 2012. And then again, it was amended in August of 2016. At first, I mentioned before, it said 214 dwelling units, and that's as in accordance with Measure E at the time. Again, this is 2011, that's the original. And then an additional 206 units were added in August 2016. So you've got 420 units between those two approved Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plans, so 420 units. Chapter 6 of parks of the Teal Boulevard specific plan says there will be few effects of amount of park space required. Meaning, for the existing parks that we have can handle the additional, at first 214 units, then another 206, that can handle the additional units. Yes, sir.
Yeah, maybe I'm reading that wrong, but that kind of concerned me when I read that. In the overall Thousand Oaks master plan, the CRPD master plan is basically the recreation element of the Thousand Oaks master plan. So my understanding is that CRPD, as the city's new master plan is being updated, that CRPD will be involved in the recreation part of it, and our master plan will
yes
coincide with what they're doing.
Yes.
Did the Park District have any input in the Teal Boulevard master planning and specifically Chapter 6?
We did talk to them about it. Now remember, it said that it started with 214, and what we looked at, and I'll if you just hold on one second, I'll let you know. That's the next slide. But you asked a great question. Thanks for the segue, Chuck. And then I just wanted one more quote from the environmental impact report. It said, quote, "It would not significantly impact the provision of park and recreation services in the community." That's what it said. So as Chuck so brilliantly asked, there we go. So, okay, so what is this, what do we got here? So what is this effect, right? What is this effect that we had? So the original was adopted in 2011, 214 units, using our population generated of 2.13 people per unit, 456 people, 1.1 acres, neighbors, park, etc. 2.3 acres were needed.
And so that is on page 51 of your packet. If you want to find it.
2.3 acres were needed to serve those people, and then amended in 2016, it works out to be 4.4 acres, because it's an additional about 895 people. Now, to answer your question, Chuck, yes, we were able to talk about it. If you look at the master plan as a whole, like every zone, we're not, we have, it's hard to say, but we have deficiencies everywhere. We do. And so we kind of looked at 2.3 acres. We can live with it.
So it's not considered significant.
Yeah, because we do have similar deficiencies in similar areas throughout the whole district.
I don't think we have our handhelds.
And
do you have a handheld? There's no handheld mics around. Just for the, there is one.
What's the problem?
Well, we have people listening online.
Yeah, we have people listening on Zoom, and we don't know the.
Okay, so thank you.
And I just at that moment, one of the things, the payment of the Quimby fees is a approximation of what the impact to the park would be. So by receiving those Quimby fees, those should be available to help assuage the impact. So that's the.
So in general, yes, in general, when we haven't had significant Quimby fees. I mean, we just had one, Teal Boulevard. We just got
299.
We got almost $1.56 million a few days ago because of 299 Thousand Oaks Boulevard. But generally now the Quimby fees we're getting, what you've seen in our board reports, it's $1,600 for an ADU, or it might be $15,000 for one single family home. But what would happen, but some of the differences what we get for those, because they're one unit in, it's zone 6 planning area, whatever, we get to $15,000. It goes into our fund that we have, and we'll spend it on existing parks for a new playground or something like that. But what we're talking about here, and what, again, from years ago, what it was intended to, where we would get Quimby fees and then use that money to buy park acreage and develop it for those new residents. Or again, the developer can provide land in lieu of a fee, or provide both, a combination of land and fee, or he can develop the park. Again, it just depends on what's going on. So this is what our original, or this is the approved Teal Boulevard specific plan right now. Right now, the current plan in 2016 says 420 units, and that would affect us with 4.4 acres, 2.2 being neighborhood parks, 1.1 being playfield, and 1.1 being community parks. And getting back to Chuck's question, we kind of went, you know what I mean? Yeah, we wish we could do something, but we can't, you know, so yes, Nellie.
So I'm wondering, when you did these figures for these deficiencies, was that including the Conejo Creek Southwest Park?
Yeah, no, well, well, I'll get to that. So at the moment, this is just the effect of these new units on Teal Boulevard. Just the effect.
But the Conejo Creek Southwest Park would be.
Okay, that's it, right. That's a building block. I'm not there yet.
Oh,
I said,
okay.
so I want to try to show you, what I tried to show you here was, I was just kind of like setting the stage, existing, assuming Conejo Creek Southwest, and nothing's happening at Teal Boulevard. This is just today. Conejo Creek Southwest opens tomorrow. You know, try to shorten the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Conejo Creek Southwest opens tomorrow. This is where we sit. Nothing's happening on Teal Boulevard. Nothing. So then we're looking at, so this is like I said, one building block for the discussion. So this is where we are right now with Conejo Creek South being built. Then, you know, this is where Teal Boulevard said they were, that we would need an additional, this is in addition to this.
In addition to Conejo Creek Southwest.
In addition to this, and I'm going to bring it all together.
Okay, so that's what
in a
I was
second.
wondering.
I'm going to bring it all together at the end, because that's right. That's the punchline right at the end. That'll be near the end of the presentation. So this is in addition, and that's why I wanted to say, that's exactly the point I was trying to get across, that Chuck said that this is what the Teal Boulevard specific plan said, and we went, yeah, we wish we had some more park acreage, but we could live with it. We could live with, you know, being deficient another 1.1 acres in neighborhood park or 2.8. We could live with it. We could live with it. So then, but then what happened, the city did what they call the Measure E analysis in 2017. So Measure E was adopted in 1996, and it talked about the infrastructure that the city's infrastructure and what the amount of housing that they could support. And so the city staff went back and they did an analysis. So just think of it this way, that they talked about where there's an increase and decrease in density. Now and I'm totally well, I'll just use you guys for example. So the Rochelle Callis's housing unit, they actually underdeveloped her neighborhood. So there was housing units available in her neighborhood that could go anywhere in this city or anywhere in the district, because hers was underdeveloped. And then in Susan's was overdeveloped, her neighborhood. So that was subtraction. So like I said, so what they looked at, where the different places where there was an increase in density in past development, or where there's a decrease in density in past development. So they looked at what was the plan back in 1996. And so let's add up all the pluses and take away the minuses and do all that. And so what is the difference today versus what it can be? And they came up with 5,400 units. There can be an additional 5,400 units in the city of Thousand Oaks. So what council directed city staff do, and they decided on, they picked a number of 20%. They said that sounded reasonable. 20%, so 1,080 units, and this is straight from their minutes, that staff should come back with recommendations utilizing 1,080 units to be available for reallocation, providing suggestions and guidelines. So city staff, please come back to us. There's 1,080 units somewhere. Where are you going to put them? And how are you going to do it? And what are some guidelines? And what are the recommendations? City staff hasn't come back yet with those recommendations. But again, that's why we're here right now. And let's see if I got anything else on that. And no, so when we know about this, so we need to do our due diligence. Like, okay, it was 214, and then it jumped up to 420. It'd be another 1,080, and actually, really, it could be another 5,400 units, theoretically, because that's based upon their Measure E analysis. So we thought it was our job to just, for lack of a word, tell the board, hey, something big could happen here. And we don't want to be, we want to get way ahead of the train versus, you know, being in conjunction with the train going down, because as things get developed, it's going to get harder and harder to find parkland, harder and harder to develop it. So let's try to look into the future and see what we see and work with the other staff. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So has the city said, and I know you're saying that the city's just kind of thrown out these numbers, but is there any sense of that they?
Marktown's watching. They don't throw out numbers.
Okay, sorry.
They did a complete analysis of the
Okay.
city of Thousand Oaks and the densities, the increase, where they could increase and decrease densities. And they came out with a bank or a pool of another 5,400 units.
Okay, so these very well thought out numbers.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what I'm wondering, is there any limitation to how many they could put in one area? So
Well,
could like all 5,400 go on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, or are they going to look at different areas?
And that's what their staff has been tasked with doing. That's why recommendations to take those units, providing suggestions and guidelines. So that's their job right now, to where they're going to put these units.
And I may suggest that part of the city's general plan update and the extensive process they're currently going through is to re-examine the entire general plan. So like they're going through that process right now about where in the future would we want to potentially change land uses and all sorts of things. So that's why they have a big group of citizens involved. They're doing a lot of community outreach meetings. They're having a lot of public discussions about it, but it's something to pay attention to, because at some point they're going to have to, say, okay, we've heard everything we've heard. Here is the map, and what we propose the new general plan will look like. And that land use map is the city's responsibility. It's not ours. We don't control land use. That's a city of Thousand Oaks. That's a city police power. So we don't get to pick and choose where things are planned or where things are zoned. That's totally within the city's area of responsibility, and that's what they're currently doing right now. So as they're starting to get the plan, this we thought was a perfect time to say, you might want to draw a park somewhere in the plan, or because I don't know that they know where the units are going to go yet either. So it's all got to kind of come together, and it's not an easy puzzle to build.
This is step one of literally probably 100 steps. Yeah. Easy. So we're just here, again, we thought it was prudent to let you know that this is coming in the future, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. It's like Jim says, a general plan, comprehensive review of the general plan, and they have the ability to put additional units in the city of Thousand Oaks, which will affect us. So that's why I'm showing you like how it has historically gone from 214 units to 420. Now it could be up to literally another 5,400 units, so about 5,800 units in the district. But we're looking at we're here tonight talking specifically about Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan, but there will be challenges too within the whole district. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my next question, you're probably not going to have an answer for, but since we don't have a lot of land, like most of the ranches have been developed here, are we looking pretty much at high density units that would not have backyards to where we would really need parks, or has any kind of decision been made on that? Or do we just not know?
No decisions yet. That's why we're here, just to talk about what kind of units are being placed, where they're being placed, what effect that has on our park acreage needs throughout the district. So that's why we're here. So again, those are the same questions we have, and we're just trying to educate you what we know now and get you thinking the same way we're thinking, that this is something that needs to be addressed, and we need to look forward, because again, we don't want to be here 5 years from now going, oh crap, this happened, and we forgot to buy parks while we're doing it. You have a question, sir?
Well, I was just saying, because I had mentioned it in another meeting with Records, and actually, that new Westlake YMCA, all the parkland there, which is not ours.
Correct.
But that will be close to some portion of this zone.
Yeah, I think it's in zone 1, but I believe it's fairly,
Well, it's before Westlake Boulevard.
yeah, it's Lindero Canyon and Teal Boulevard.
Yeah.
So it's close-ish, but you know, it's not within, again, and I'll show the map again. Right, right. Yes, Chuck.
Since this is mostly discussion and sort of grand IDing, ideas, was there ever any discussion early on in the CRPD's master planning, or might there be going down in the future when most of the building in Thousand Oaks for years and years was all single family homes with backyards and all the other stuff? But as the point was made, it may be going forward that the only, or the majority of new development, that the only thing that can go in is multifamily dwellings, which don't have backyards.
Mm-hmm.
Should part of this process be looking at, does it make sense to have X number of acres per 1,000 population, regardless of whether the homes have 1 acre lots or 0 acre lots?
Definitely. So the density we use for multifamily housing is 2.13. So it depends. There's different densities for different types of housing. So, and I'm not off the top of my head, I don't know, but you know, like a single family home might be 2.5. So that's why that changes the acreage need, because a multifamily house has 2.13. So you get 10 of them. There's 21 people are supposed to live. So then that affects our park acreage versus 10 homes, and that might be 25 people. I'm just obviously using a very small sample there.
Okay, but my point is that whether it's 2.1 for a multifamily, 2.5 for a single family home, there's actually a significantly greater need, I think, for park space for those multifamily 2.1 per
Agreed.
unit as opposed to 2.5.
Agreed. Yes, yeah, definitely agree.
If
Yes.
we're looking at the big picture, do we need to visit the idea of changing some of those assumptions or parameters as to how much acreage of
Yes,
park?
that's on the table too. That's something that I think definitely, again, punchline stuff, but yeah, that's something when we hope to meet with Teal Boulevard Association folks, property owners, developers, city staff, and hopefully post-COVID, we're all sitting in a big room with 50, 60, 70 people, and we say, well, what can we do here to make this work? And so let's all get together, and that might be a strategy. And so that's, like I said, that's our recommendation today, is just that we get together with everybody and develop strategies to make this work. And it might be, it's compromise on our side, compromise on their side, because, looking into it, like we say, parks are very essential. And I do believe that the developers and property owners and city staff think the same thing, because that's because we could sit here and, I got my park, but there's going to be, 400, 1,000, 2,000 people, whatever it ends up to be, residents who they deserve what we have. And so we need to figure out the best way to give them as much as possible.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
is there any approximate time that such a meeting would take place? Is there a schedule, some kind of a timeline associated with?
Not at the moment, but we're just what we want to do is really just, like I said, make the board aware. And then, let's say Sean Meridian's he's in this meeting. We've already worked with, we've had some discussions with city staff, but would love to, and I know when we did talk with Sean before the meeting today, and he is more than willing to participate and represent the property owners and the developers, because I truly believe that the community, well, each individual piece of this puzzle wants to do the right thing. No one's here just to, I just want this, or I want my, no, they all realize that if we all work together,
We're in this together.
that the community is going to be the winner of that. So this is just as education at the moment to get everybody in this room up to speed on where we're at. And so we can move forward, with working with the other folks to develop these strategies. Okay, so like, so you're just going backwards a little bit. So the Measure E analysis said, yeah, there could be an additional 5,400 units. And they said, come back staff with 1,080 units, giving us recommendations and guidelines where they are. So we took this, remember, this is the approved, the original and the current Teal Boulevard specific plan. So, well, there could be more, because they told us there could be more. So let's do a range, because we don't know. We don't know if it's going to be, another 100 of that 1,000 or another 1,000 or another 1,500. So we just took a range and we made it comparable to your recent developments in Rancho Conejo and Dos Vientos Ranch. So we added, so these are the same first two columns, or excuse me, first two rows, 214 additional units, 420 additional units. So let's do a range. 500 additional units, 1,000 additional units, 1,500 additional units, 2,000 additional units on Teal Boulevard, just a range. And it might be more, it might be less, it might be somewhere in between. We don't know. But again, this is just an education process. But what it shows you, that remember originally, and again, back to Chuck's question 10 or 15 minutes ago, 2.3 acres, 4.4 acres. Yeah, okay, we can live with it. 2,000 units, 21.3 acres. Crap, we can't live with that. That's something we can't live with. That's something that needs to be addressed. So that's why we're saying, like, hey, if there's these range of additional units, this is significant. Just even looking at neighborhood park, 10.7 acres of neighborhood park, 5.3 acres of playfield, 5.3 acres community park. Significant need. If you went all the way to the top, again, that would just give you, for like, worst case scenario of the ranges that we took a look at. So let's revisit again. Now let's going back to where we were. This is that original, one of those original exhibits. That's kind of, okay, so again, this is the range of what possibly could be happening, just a range, just a guess. And so what's going to happen here? So revisiting Teal Boulevard specific plans, the yellow area, planning zone 1, or excuse me, zone 1, planning area 3, zone 4, planning area 12. We've got Russell Park, La Paz, Bayer, and Estella, and over here. And here we've got the developed, we're going to assume, the developed Conejo Creek Southwest and Glenwood. So what does that mean? So this is now we're combining a couple of the exhibits. If you remember, this is the same thing. This is like straight out of the master plan, modified. We modified using these numbers, this range again, put it together. What does that mean? So and one of the things we want to talk about is our actual approach to this, okay? We're focusing on neighborhood park acreage here, okay? And one of the reasons we're focusing on neighborhood park acreage, because I really don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for a playfield or a community park in here. I don't think so. Yeah, we have some other part. Well, we'll get to that in a second. But let's focus on neighborhood parks. And one of the reasons we're focusing on neighborhood parks, again, in addition to this is what can fit in there and what we think we can accomplish. One of the other things we want to take a look at, well, what is a neighborhood park? A neighborhood park, by our definition, of our master plan, somewhere between 2 and 10 acres. And if you, for example, Estella and Suburbia are our smallest parks, 1.9 and 2 acres respectively. So those are our small ones. And what does a neighborhood park usually have? It usually has like a playground or a basketball court, some open turf areas to play in, some picnic tables. It might even have a volleyball court, maybe a shade structure, a bathroom, depending on the size and depending on what we could fit in. So we kind of have, I don't say all over the map, but a neighborhood park, again, remember, serves the neighborhood, right? Serves the neighborhood. So that's what we're looking at here. How can we serve this neighborhood? We're calling this together as a neighborhood. Excuse me a second, let me get my next, see if I don't miss anything.
Tom,
yes, sir.
Since you're on definitions, is the Conejo Creek South soccer fields just a real big play field, or is that something different?
That's a district-wide park.
So you're just looking at the totality of all quadrants and just calling it a community or district-wide park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Conejo Creek complex, but we don't define Conejo Creek Southwest as part of that, but the Conejo Creek complex is a district-wide park. but you can use within that, I take that back, you can use in that, because it's the above, Canal Creek is part of Zone 1, I forget the planning area, but it can be used, the play fields are used for that one, and then the Canal Creek North Park for the zone up here is used, that's like the playground, that's the neighborhood park for that particular zone.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Let's see, where else, where am I? Take these off.
You're talking about neighborhood parks being 2 to 10 acres?
Yes. I just got to get the right. Apologize here. I was talking so much.
Got to catch up with yourself.
Got to catch up with myself. Here we go. Let's see. Yes. So what we want to take a look at is, so we talked about what a neighborhood park is, what's in there, 2 to 10 acres. And we're focusing on what the neighborhood parks. So what we took was this area, and again, like for lack of a better word, we treated it as its own zone or its own planning area, because that's what it kind of is, So what does that mean with these different ranges? This is the same piece of paper, same look as we had before. This is current, but so instead of now, what I took was Zone 1, Planning Area 3, and Zone 1-4, Planning Area 12. I made that one area. This is just the Teal Boulevard specific area. And you could see existing, if you smash those two together, we are 6.3 acres shy in neighborhood parks existing right now, just for that area. Again, that's existing. So what happens with build out, right? And we have a whole range of build out. We have anywhere from 200, where it was originally contemplated, 214 more units, all the way down to another 2,000 units. And so the neighborhood park component goes all the way from 7.4 acres deficient. This grows from 6.3 to 7.4, all the way to 17 acres deficient. 17 acres deficient in neighborhood park if there's 2,000 units. Again, there's variations in between there. Again, there's 8.5, 9.0, 11.6, et cetera, of variations depending upon the number of units. So again, just try, I apologize if I'm just repeating. We took existing population of those, of the Teal Boulevard specific plan area and said, you're your own zone, and what effect, what this is existing, and what effect these new units would have upon that. So we came up with different acreage that it was deficient in. So, but I know I said, hey, planning, playfields and community parks can't happen in that zone, but it's important, right? It's important for this reason. And that, so again, here's the planning area that we are talking about. This is the Teal Boulevard specific area. But those new units that will go in here will have an effect on Caneo Community Park, North Ranch Playfield, and Triumphal Park. Now, we said we might not be able to develop them, but the park acreage deficiency right now, that those, if you combine those two areas, it's 16.6 and 28.6. If you take that, the range goes for 2,000 units on the boulevard. The acreage deficiency for Playfield is 21.9, and community parks is 33.9. Again, we said really hard to build those, but just if you think about it this way, at North Ranch Playfield, there's however many new people. That means more soccer teams, more softball teams. So Rochelle was used to having practice every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because that's what she's had for years. Now there's another 500, 1,000 kids. Sorry, Rochelle, you're only getting Mondays and Wednesdays because Fridays we're going to give to the other people, to the new people. Or it just becomes more difficult because there's more people. But so again, I just want to put that out there. Again, we're looking at the neighborhood park approach. I wanted to make sure we had that. So there's less opportunities. And also in the district-wide, there's less opportunities because of the additional units. So we took a look at that. And again, now we're at the punchline of this. So we've talked about the need. Again, we're looking at neighborhood park acreage. Anywhere from 6.3 existing park acreage, need neighborhood park in that Teal Boulevard specific plan, all the way to 17 acres. So what we did was took estimated minimum and maximum acquisition cost for park acreage. And that varies greatly. It varies, we estimate anywhere from $375,000 to $3 million an acre. And the eightfold difference between the two is very simply, park acreage right on the boulevard and park acreage right on the boulevard with a good, stable improvements already upon it will be more costly than a vacant lot that's, a quarter mile north of Keogh Boulevard. Because obviously you're buying not only the land, you're buying the location of the land, and you're also buying the structures that are upon the land. So that's how we did the estimates. So we have an estimated minimum acquisition cost, an estimated maximum acquisition cost, and then we used $500,000 per acre for development. And so then we put those all together. And again, the punchline is, at worst, if we were to do this per our master plan, park acreage, 10 acres per 1,000 people, that right now, this is existing, right now, we'd be looking at $5.5 million to satisfy our master plan. Worst case scenario, we'd need 17 acres. And if we bought it all on the boulevard, it's close to $60 million. And again, this is, we had to give you the worst case scenario and what we think is the best case scenario. So obviously there's many different ways to get, to figure this out, but it had to give you minimum maximums and, and go from there. And this doesn't even talk about the annual operating costs of the parks. This is just acquisition and development. So anywhere from $5.5 million to nearly $60 million.
And I will say, to point out, to not make it seem so scary, you'll notice Quimby fees expected. So you go down the Quimby fee column. As there's more units, we definitely get more money from the Quimby fee.
It's the land.
And yeah, so and then the other item I would note in terms of the ongoing operation and maintenance costs, the theory with the additional development is additional assessed valuation on the properties. So that would generate additional property tax that would then pay for the ongoing maintenance and operations. Although traditionally, when we look at that really closely, we do detect a bit of a shortfall, which is why, like in Dos Pinos and Rancho, we were able to work with those property owners and put in a landscape maintenance benefit assessment district for those particular parks. So there's all sorts of ways to sort of look at this. And Tom's given us this really great wide range of possibilities that are out there that you could argue all sorts of different reasonablenesses to them. So, which is why this is such a
It's
fun subject.
It's a discussion. Because we're not saying this is going to happen. We're saying this could happen. And we have to give you worst case scenarios. Yes, ma'am.
Well, one question I have, and I have no feelings one way or the other, so it's not politically for me an issue. But is there political division about people who do not want all this development along Keogh Boulevard and people who do want it? And I mean, what is the political situation
you
at
take
this
that.
point?
I will be happy to answer that. Tale as old as time. There's definitely a difference of opinion among the population about development in general. Some folks would rather we still had hitching posted horses that only got us around. And I mean, that's not the Thousand Oaks that we live in anymore. So there's no doubt that this land use by almost in any community, land use is a fraught political issue, right? That is, people care deeply about what is going on next to where they live or where they, shop, everything. So land use has the potential of being a politically fraught sort of subject matter. The city is doing, a really good job of navigating that right now with the whole general plan update, which will ultimately culminate in a new general plan land use map. But then even when you have the land use all teed up, the general plan says it's for housing, the zoning says it's for housing, then a developer comes in and actually proposes housing, the project by project issues also come into play. Doug's lived it on the planning commission. So it is an area that people get strong opinions about. May not be my place. I'm the general manager, but one of the things I've noticed historically is the park district and the city have a very excellent working relationship in many ways. We have stayed out of their political, issue areas. And so I have not seen historically park board members take a very strong political stance on something that really is truly the city's purview, land use and those tough development decisions.
I just wondered.
That I would just say, that said, part of the presentation that we are doing today is to raise our collective awareness, this board, that although I personally believe that the city has a job to do, land use is a tough thing, they will do what they need to do. And I don't think we necessarily need to participate politically, as long as the numbers that we experience with our master plan, the effects of the additional population on our ability to provide parks, as long as that is thoughtfully addressed. And historically, they've always done that, and I don't expect that would change. I just am wanting this board to be aware of this, time in this process of what's happening right now with,
it's a great answer. I mean, I'm just, and just to wrap up, I know we'll definitely have some more questions, but I think the most important thing to come across here is just kind of take a step back from what Jim just said, that there's always been a vision, from our original leaders, park board members, city council members, residents. This place is awesome. And they're the ones who set the course. And then it was the, elected officials, former elected officials, you guys as elected officials, school district elected officials, past, present, future. We've always worked together to make this happen. This is an awesome place to live, quality of life. It's a kick-ass place to live. And I think everybody knows that. And part of it is again, I applaud the elected officials. I applaud the original staff members, former staff members of all the public agencies, and the future staff members, because they all realize, hey, we got to have good parks, we got to have good housing, we got to have good streets, we got to do this, or because you can't short one for the other, because then you lose your quality of life. It starts to go downhill. That's what makes this a great place. And it's one of the most desirous places to live. The residents love it. The residents are very engaged. And I think the electeds listen to them, and it's been awesome. And I've lived here, now George is on 75 years of living here, right?
Not quite.
So, but I've been here for 25 years, and I constantly tell my family back east, I was like, this is awesome here. I'm loving it here. I want to stay here for the rest of my life if I can. So with that said, this is a little different than it was 30, 40, 20 years ago, whatever. There's not just vacant land sitting there and go, oh, how are we going to do this? There's no Dos Finos ranches there. Oh, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. But with that said, I'm looking at other examples of large cities. Pittsburgh did it. Houston did it. Even medium-sized cities like Liverpool. Some other places I'm just trying to envision, both. It was kind of interesting. Both Houston and Pittsburgh, I think they both called theirs, one informally, one formally. They called it Stitch Park. And it was like, well, I don't get that, because what it was stitching together people that lived here and the people that lived over here, because they were in their, multifamily density housing or apartments, and so were these people, and they needed a place to hang out and have fun. And I think the city is very well aware of that. I think the property owners and developers are very well aware of that too, that, and we all remember, let's see, who's the youngest here? Melissa. But we all remember when, you were just married, or just, and it was just you and your spouse, or you're single, or living with a friend. You still wanted to go to the park and shoot some hoops, or walk around, or go for a run, or something like that, right? It wasn't, it's great to have, a shopping and dining and all that. You still want to hang out. Oh, then you have a baby or two. You want to push them on the stroller and play in the playground. And all of a sudden you have the kids are 5, 6, 7 years old. You're like, hey, you know what? It's time now to to get a backyard and get our own private residence, private backyard and move just a little bit away. But we still want to stay in Thousand Oaks because it's such a great place to live. And I think that's something that the city, again, it was, remember that phrase they use that I firmly believe in, a fresh look on how we live, shop, and play. And play, that's key, and play. So I think we need to give these future residents, wherever they live, the opportunity to play in green space and give them the same opportunities that we've had. So that's why we're here before you. Just again, more than happy to have more discussions. The recommendation is just authorize us to work with other public agencies and the Teal Boulevard Association. And we've already had, like I said, some discussions with them because I think they want the same things we do. Again, we just want to make you aware of what's going on. We want to move forward in like George was saying, a good timeline, get a plan, get it going. And those things, develop strategies where we all could win. And so, because when we all win, a little compromise here, we're all in the best interest of the community. And then when it's all done, 10, 20, 30 years from now, whenever it happens, we're still like one of the most desirous places to live in the whole United States. And I want to keep that way. We've been doing it for, nearly 60 years now. Let's keep it going for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years and keep it going for the future. So that's why we're here, letting you guys know what we're doing, what we want to accomplish, and who we want to accomplish it with. With that.
Tom, thank you. Thank you for
Very good. Thank you very much.
a lot of calculations, a lot of suppositions, all kinds of interesting and exciting things for the board to look at, because I went through it, but all of it didn't sink in. So I can see some evening coming up or Saturday morning, whatever, going back over this information and material with your input now. Again, thank you and thank your staff. Any questions at this time? Director Nichols.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order more than anything else. I know we have two guests online. Do we want to hear from them now?
That's a good.
Before we.
I think so.
This,
thank you, Director Nichols.
They're very knowledgeable guests online, so I think it'd be a good opportunity to hear from them and whatever questions they may have.
I think that's excellent.
And just in addition, at least at one point, I believe we had someone who was waiting to make public comments. And I don't know if that individual is still there, what the time frame would be, but if he's still there, he's been very patient through all of this.
Well, public comments on this, I think. Right, that's what we're going. Okay, so if you can hook them up there, Mark.
Mark Town. Good. Mark, yeah. Mark, you there?
Wake up, Mark.
Hey, still awake. Thanks,
Great.
Mark.
Still here.
Can you sit down from the standing ovation you gave me?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you to the Park District Board of Directors for considering this item and for staff's presentation and preparation of the staff report. I know a lot of material was in there. And so I just wanted to provide a few comments, both in response and also as background. So as Jim mentioned, the city is involved in a comprehensive general plan update. We began this about a year ago, and as you probably know, we've been providing opportunities for public input over that time period, as well as a lot of background analysis. We have had a number of public workshops and pop-up events and city council study sessions. And it's important because this is the city's first general plan update that is being done in a comprehensive manner since 1970. So we have done updates of individual topics over the years, but have never done a comprehensive update like this. So it's very exciting. It's very important. We're looking at land uses, which is a key part of it throughout the city. All of the land uses, commercial, industrial, institutional, and of course, residential. So on the residential front, we are looking literally on a parcel by parcel basis throughout the city for sites where housing could potentially be located, including the downtown area, but that's not the only place. of course, we are looking at other properties, either vacant, but relatively few vacant properties left, as you know. Most of the properties that you are seeing that are being proposed for residential are actually conversions from non-residential uses to residential uses. Properties such as the prior school district property at Newberry and East Kelly, 10-acre site, approved by City Council to go through the planning process a few months ago. And so those are the types of projects that we're seeing. So we don't know right now how many units are going to be in the downtown area. And Tom provided you with a range of potential scenarios, but we, at this point, just don't know exactly how many units may be proposed in the downtown area. But we will be working with, obviously, the Park District, with property owners such as the Teal Boulevard Association, and you'll be hearing from Mr. Meridian in a moment as we go forward with those plans. But it is exciting. Right now, we have the city's first 2 mixed-use projects in the downtown area, 299 East Thousand Oaks Boulevard, which is under construction. And that is sort of diagonally across from the Tarantula Brewery, you know that location. And then, of course, the prior Lupe site, known now as 1710 on the Boulevard, which should be opening within approximately 2 months. So very exciting to see those projects going forward. And with that, let me just mention a few comments in response to some of Tom's comments and a couple of board comments. First of all, with regard to the 5,400 units that were identified in 2017, those were potential units to add to our Measure pools, so to speak, for potential use citywide. They were only identified. They were not allocated into those pools. Only 1,080 units were allocated into those pools. And to allocate any additional units requires Planning Commission reviews, City Council initiation, Planning Commission recommendation, City Council final action. So the original 5,400 units that were identified, those are not all available. Only 1,080 or 20% were made available. And we actually have been providing recommendations. Those are in the form of potential increases to the residential capacity for different properties, such as the Daylight site at the prior school district site, or the Cohan property on Herbs Road, or even the Kmart sites out on Hampshire. So those are the types of recommendations that we have provided since then. We will, of course, look forward to working with your staff and the Boulevard owners and developers and residents with regard to park needs in the downtown area. That's clearly on our radar screen, and I think tonight's presentation identifies it as a topic that we all need to address going forward. It's always been on our radar, and so it is appropriate that the topic be introduced and that we work together on this in the future. So with that, I just also wanted to, as a side note, congratulate Director Lang on that, Chair Lang on that great award earlier. It's been great working with you all these years, George, and look forward to collaboration in the future. So I would be happy to answer any questions. I know I'm just a guest speaker, but so used to saying that at all these council and commission meetings.
Well,
So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
thank you, Mark. Are there any specific questions of Mark at this time that you'd like to ask? Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark Town, thank you so much for the quick review there. Just a clarification, we've heard a lot of numbers tonight. The initial numbers of 214 units up to 420 units and now 1,080 units, are those cumulative, or are we just at the 1,080, which is the 20% of that 5,400? Is that what's currently available in the pool citywide?
So the way, hopefully I can clarify this a little bit, but when the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan was created, there was a pre-existing residential capacity. That was 214 units. Those units were were included obviously in the specific plan, and we divided those units equally, basically into 3 districts. So those 214 units were pre-existing. They were basically reallocated into these districts, and those have been used for the development of projects like Lupe's, like it's known now as YOLO 1, the apartment complex behind instrumental music, the 26 condominiums on Clay Court. All of those projects were basically, or those projects utilized portions of those 214 units. So there's some of those units that are still available, but about 2/3 of those have been used. In 2016, the City Council allocated 206 units to the Boulevard specific plan from the citywide pool to be used only for the specific plan area. And those 206 units are still available. Think of it as a little cloud floating over the boulevard. It can be used anywhere within that district for future residential projects. And that's where the 420 units that Tom mentioned came from. Citywide, we have a separate, larger pool. Right now it's around 900 units. That is a reflection of the 1,080 units that were allocated years ago. But those 900 units can be used anywhere in the city, including the specific plan area. And those are still there for potential allocation subject to planning commission and city council approval. So there could be more units added to the specific plan in the future, but only through general plan amendments. Right now you have the remaining 1/3 of the 214, or about 70 units in the specific plan area, and then you have the 206 that could be used anywhere in the area going forward. So that's hopefully that clarified it a little bit.
Sure. So just to
that's the current landscape.
There's a small portion of that 214 that was allocated is to those 3 separate districts within the specific plan area. And then there's the 206 units that can be used anywhere in the specific plan area.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's 1,080 units that can be used anywhere in the city.
The last number should be, actually it's 908 units that can be used anywhere in the city. It simply reflects the original 1,080 that were added, because some of those have already been used by projects over the last few years.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, Director Cusworth.
So where does the property that is the old Conejo Valley High School, where does that fall in? Is that part of the 908 units?
Correct. The prior school district site, they're proposing right now 210 apartments and a hotel and reuse of the timber school buildings, the historic buildings. But the 908 citywide units reflects the unit allocation that council already gave to that site. So that's, for instance, part of the 1,080 and some pre-existing units that were citywide. So the 908 is post that project.
It's after that project, so there's still 908 that would be available on top of the old school site.
Well, those 908 units could be used anywhere in the city, anywhere that council ultimately decides is most appropriate.
But the school site is not included, so we wouldn't be subtracting the units from the school site from the 900.
Correct. They've already been subtracted.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we've got next onliner. John?
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Sean Muradian. I'm the president of the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Association, and it's a pleasure to be before you this evening. It is my first time. And first off, I'd like to congratulate Chair Lang on his recognition. I heard all the beautiful comments and seemed like a really amazing, well-rounded serviceman, and for your service to our country. So thank you for that. Also want to say good evening to Vice Chair Nichols, who I've worked with when he was a planning commissioner. It's nice to be before you this evening as well. With that said, as I said, I'm the president of the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Association, and I'm a lifelong resident of Thousand Oaks. I had the pleasure of speaking with Jim and Tom this afternoon when this agenda item was brought to my attention. And just briefly, I wanted to just chime in on a few things. As it related to the presentation this evening, it was very comprehensive and there's a lot of good information that I think was discussed, but I think there was some elements to it that I would entertain, should also be considered. The first being, there is no dispute that we value our parks and that TOBA recognizes the contribution of our park systems and our open space to the quality of life, the success, and what makes this community special. And we definitely want to work with the CRPD and the City of Thousand Oaks to preserve that and enhance it where possible. Beyond that, prior to this presentation, I just want to note for the record that TOBA was not involved or had any discussion or input into this presentation. So there were some assumptions and calculations that I'm going to try to briefly touch upon, but we look forward, if it is the board's direction to staff to work with our organization along with other stakeholders, that hopefully we can come back with some more concrete recommendations and solutions how to address current and future park needs. With that said, the presentation this evening, we believe, gave the assumption that the future housing growth of Thousand Oaks is only going to take place within the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. And I want to tell you unequivocally that is not going to be the case. That this presentation and the Parks District's thought of how future park needs are going to be addressed for the community, especially in relation to the general plan update, should not solely look at Thousand Oaks Boulevard. Thousand Oaks Boulevard is a 3-mile stretch of nearly 354 miles of land area that Thousand Oaks encompasses. The City of Thousand Oaks is practically 95% built out. There's 5% left to be developed or redeveloped. Of that 95%, nearly 70% encompasses single-family neighborhoods, park space, and open space. Further, the 5,000 units that was thrown around, I think Mr. Town clarified to some extent that that number is not going to be built on Thousand Oaks Park, nor could it. That looks at a citywide need. And most of that development may be taking place along other areas along the 101 corridor. We encourage, if the CRPD is going to be looking at revisiting its general plan and working with its stakeholders, along with the City of Thousand Oaks, with the general plan update, to relook at its own master plan to see how, we could collaborate on more efficient use of parks, definitely locations where perhaps other parks are warranted. But, the City of Thousand Oaks is operating on a plan that's 50 years old. The park districts, I know, mirrors that to a certain extent. And I was discussing earlier with Jim and Tom that maybe certain formulas that were also discussed this evening should be looked at with a fresh set of eyes to see how they could better serve the community. In conjunction with the city's master plan, definitely the CRPD will have input into that process. I don't think that was ever assumed that there wouldn't be. And for some historical perspective, since there's been a lot of discussion of the inception of the specific plan 9 years ago, the 214 units, I wanted to provide some facts and some sobering actual numbers that this board can consider in moving forward. So over the past 9 years, this Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan has actually only developed less than 50 units. You've heard, the standalone project on Clay Court, which was not mixed use, and the YOLO project. Beyond that, we only have the Lupe's project, which is 36 units, that is near completion after 3 years. And God willingly, we have the 299 project, which I'm happy to hear they paid their park fees, of another 142. Cumulatively, we barely get to that 200 unit number that was contemplated nearly 10 years ago. Beyond that, there is no other projects currently in the pipeline to be developed, nor is there surplus land on Thousand Oaks Boulevard to accommodate many more units. As Tom presented, that land is scarce. There's a lot of structures on these properties. A lot of them are occupied, and to be able to acquire them and redevelop them has been challenging enough from TOBA's standpoint to try to get this type of pedestrian-friendly experience, let alone trying to acquire it for parkland. So, to get 1,000 units or anywhere to close to 5,000 units, I'm preparing to bet it's going to take another 50 to 100 years for that to happen. Most likely, you're going to see a lot of the development for the future growth and state mandate go into other areas along the 101 freeway, not Thousand Oaks Boulevard and not our specific plan. With that said, we look forward to working with staff and with the Parks District to come up with, something that's definitely a win-win. We feel like you guys are doing a fantastic job. You represent our community with a high level of professionalism and respect. And we make ourselves available to working as partners. We know that, your organization relies heavily on fees, and as many projects that this community can bring forward in the city to help contribute to those fees, to preserve these parks and create new ones, we see that as a win-win partnership. So just a few thoughts. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I look forward to working with the board and with your executive staff and hopefully being before you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any specific questions? Director Nichols.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean, thank you for the input, and thank you for staying with us for many hours, but I know you're used to that with your involvement with the City Council and the Planning Commission, so thank you. Since you've been involved with the Thousand Oaks Boulevard in multiple capacities over the years, in going through these various iterations, when the discussions of what the boulevard could look like or should look like based on those who are currently that own property on the boulevard, was there any vision for incorporating green space or parks in some type of a community fashion, aside from what we currently see at the lakes and the Civic Center? Or was it more envisioned that it were to be incorporated within whatever housing projects were to be built? Can you address that at all?
Well, I'm going to attempt to. So some historical background. I have served on the TOBA board since its inception, nearly 20 years, before it was even adopted. And so I've been part of several discussions and several different, visions for what Thousand Oaks Boulevard should look like. The consensus is that we want to create a sense of place and a downtown area that's pedestrian oriented. We knew that, elements of that, in addition to housing and other amenities like Tarantula Hill that we're proud of, should be public open space. I think the approach has been, because we don't have large pieces of land and it's scarce and it's expensive, that the way the city has been approaching it, and we've been supportive of that, has been to try to program these amenities or park-like fields or open space within the projects to the extent possible. We knew that there are central, areas that could be better activated to act as parks, like around the Civic Arts Plaza, where there's a lot of open space. There's 3 acres that the city owns. It's institutional next door to the west. There's the lakes to the east. There's 5 acres Gardens of the World to the north. So we assume that, there is some, open park space and amenity that potentially could be repurposed or reprogrammed to achieve those needs. I don't believe in the specific plan document, it requires or imposes any specific obligation other than ratios for public or open space or arts on a particular development. So the way we saw it, I guess to simply answer your question, is that we recognize that there was already a core area around the central district. As Mr. Town mentioned, there's 3. There's an east, a west, and a central. That central district already had this green space, park space, open space. And we were hoping, because it's within a mile of each direction of the boulevard, that may be enhanced to satisfy the needs for park space on Thousand Oaks Boulevard.
Thank you very much. Yeah, because I realize that there was a lot of discussion that has been happening for many years, and especially with someone like yourself who's been through that, I appreciate your input. So thank you for taking the time to explain that.
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Any other questions from the board? Okay, Sean, we look forward to additional working together and solving plans and issues and so forth. And I think we could take advantage of your organization and look forward to the future.
Likewise, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
All right. Good evening to all. Thank you.
All right. Anything more from staff? Mr. Hare?
I can't copy. No, I'm, nothing different. Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. It's going to be it's a fun challenge.
Yes.
And we'd love to work with the Teal Boulevard and the city folks and residents trying to develop the strategies to make this a great place to work and play.
Well, while listening to all this and reading the staff report, some previous ideas I had have come to mind, and I'll share that with the appropriate people, that I think will enhance everything we're looking for, not everything, what we are looking for in particular projects in Thousand Oaks Boulevard and so forth. So I'm excited also. Okay. Yes, Director Nichols.
I've got some questions and comments for staff. Yes.
Please.
Thank you, by the way, for the very detailed explanation. Appreciate that, Mr. Hare, for going through that iteration. I know there's a lot of thought and anticipation. And I know it's hard to forecast 10, 20, or 50 years into the future, and especially with a moving target. And I know that the city's got the general plan in process, so we don't really have that framework upon which to rest. But I do believe that this is a wise decision to have this discussion, to at least have some input on this parallel process, rather than waiting to the end and say, gosh, I wish we had said something in the middle of that process. So I appreciate that. A couple of things that just came to mind, and I think Mr. Muradian mentioned a good point to keep in mind, that because of the attention that has been given to the boulevard, and I think that Mr. Friedel captured it as well, that as we discussed, that there's I don't know if it's a political divide as far as the political perspective, as much as it is what people think Thousand Oaks could or should be. You have the oldsters and the youngsters, and maybe that's the divide rather than politically speaking. But nonetheless, people are well entrenched as to their opinion on what the boulevard should or shouldn't be. And I think we've got a good opportunity here to get involved with that. And I think with the perspective that he brings on how it was prepared, that it may be that we get 2,000 units on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, but it's not planned per se. It's a potential. So it's almost as if we need to have a plan A and a plan B, where, okay, if this ends up in Teal Boulevard, what happens? And if it ends up scattered throughout the city, are we flexible enough to build up over this part of town or build up over this part of town to accommodate that? So with that in mind, something that came to mind with how we approach that is, with the 6 different districts that we have in the district, or zones, I guess we call them 6 zones, rather than creating a new zone for Teal Boulevard, I was thinking of maybe something like an overlay zone, which I know the planning folks use things like that, where it's just you target something like that. So it just kind of elevates the attention to it, but not necessarily carving it out per se. So that's just a concept. It's a concept. And I think you answered a lot of these questions, but if there are other, well, actually, let me go back to, I had a bunch of questions. would it be possible to consider things like, oh, I know, open space? Is that part of your category here for parkland? When you talk about usable or developed parks, does open space become part of that equation as far as meeting those needs?
No, it does not. Our master plan does discuss open space in that, I think one of the last pages in the park deficiency analysis that we have of all the 6 zones, I think the last page it says something like, although we're deficient, we have, you know, X amount of thousands of acres of open space that are not considered as part of active recreation. So we do not consider it as part of this.
So it's not officially considered, which I guess is like from the national standard per se?
Correct, because it doesn't fall in the categories of playfield, community park, and a neighborhood park or a district-wide park. It doesn't follow to our definition.
Okay, but I guess philosophically speaking, in essence, it meets the needs that other parks meet,
Yes,
just in a different way.
you could say that, yes.
Okay, all right. When it comes to, obviously, the Thousand Oaks Boulevard, I don't know that we're going to be able to buy a whole lot of land, if any at all, or to develop it. But if there's an opportunity to find some outskirts like this, maybe perhaps not in the boulevard area itself, but in the neighboring, close to it, in the neighboring zones, how would you identify that as serving the Thousand Oaks Boulevard folks?
So when, if you, the maps, like exhibit 1, so if you look at exhibit 1, on would be on page 30, yeah, after page 34 of your packet. So just like how Glenwood and Canal Creek Southwest are there.
Yes.
That serves the western, those 2 parks serve the western portion of Teal Boulevard specific plan. So they're actually in what's called planning, you know, zone 4 planning area 12.
Yes.
So even if we were to build another park, you know, just make it like where the number 12 is, right?
Yes.
That would be serving Teal Boulevard specific plan.
Okay.
West portion. So I was using it just as you know, just kind of like, because at the moment we don't know where, like it was kind of like you're talking about your overlay, we don't know where these units are going to go on the boulevard. So, you know, and exaggerating, 2,000 units go all the way to the right, you know, or the east. Okay, well, that greatly affects zone 1 planning area 3 or here or how they're spread out. So that's why I try to get to the, let's pretend Teal Boulevard, but let's pretend what you're looking at in exhibit 1 is 1 planning area. And because they could go anywhere in here. And so what do we need to do to satisfy that? Okay. Again, it was just an exercise. It could go here, it could go here.
Okay.
I don't know.
So really, we could meet the needs as a district for all the community along the specific plan area without ever having building a park.
That is correct.
Within that red zone.
That is correct.
We could build it anywhere in this blue or green area.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So if that's the case, would enhancement or expansion of existing parks be part of that equation?
Yes.
Okay. So
that's why we're taking, remember when yeah, that's something it could happen. Yes.
okay. And likewise, if there happens to be any city or school district, I'll just call it surplus property that become available, that's also would be part of the consideration.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Whenever there's surplus property like we've had in the past, you know, years, we do analyze it into the zone and planning area. And if that's some acreage we're deficient in, then we bring it before the board.
Okay. And then would it be advantageous in some way to have a specific plan improvement district like we do with Dos Vientos and Rancho Caneo?
Yep.
Where we just say, hey, we need to somehow beef this area up, and that's a way to do it?
Right. That's one of the strategies that could be considered.
Okay. All right. All right. So let me go back to other questions here. Now, with the potential for other areas in the city to be developed, yet to be determined where and how much that's going to be subject to the general plan, how much of what you've gone through here could be just lift it and say, okay, now we're going to use the same concept to another zone? Is this basically the same process, but just applied in different
Yes.
areas?
Definitely, yes.
So it would be, I say, somewhat easily replicated as far as the format, but just how you do it. So just start to shuffle
math,
things
yes.
around a little bit.
It's just math and figuring out where if something was happening in the Dos Vientos area, what effect that would have on the park acreage. It's easy enough to figure out.
So with this nice spreadsheet that you have here to kind of conclude everything with all these figures. So if we just crossed out Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan and just said the neighborhood park acreage deficiency, this in essence would be a district-wide chart.
We could, yeah, if we could do for the entire district, we could do the same possibilities with that, yes.
Because in essence, we don't know where these potential 2,000 units could go.
Correct.
So then you would just have, this would be your header, so to speak, and then you just start breaking it up by zone as far as where those needs are.
Yeah, so that's why, like I said, one of our things that I think is key to the strategies we have is working with the city of Thousand Oaks and the Teal Boulevard. I guess Teal Boulevard is specific.
Yes.
But yeah, so working with, so if you got a map of the whole district and we're looking here, here, and here, we can go, okay, what effect does that have on the particular zones and park acreages throughout the district?
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about anywhere around town buying land.
Right.
It's just not out there to be purchased,
Yes.
So it's just a matter of using what we have or what crumbs fall off the table that we can pick up. Because I don't think anyone Teal Boulevard is going to be wanting to give up any of that property. That's those addresses are very expensive. Okay, let me get the rest of this here. Right, you cleared up my questions on open space and also the numbers. Is there any, I would say, leverage, so to speak, that we can impose on the general plan with the revision as far as if there's more units anticipated in the specific plan, we can go back and say, hey, well, your EIR said it wouldn't significantly impact, but now it looks like it will. Is that also part of the
That's a
ploy,
decision,
so to speak?
and same thing where, because it would be the city's environmental impact report. Same thing like when we develop a park, and if we have to do an EIR, so we have the abilities to say if it's mitigated, it's significant, how can we address those particular issues? So the city also has that ability, and when they provide environmental analysis, and we also have the ability to, and then again, just like one of our projects, that gets circulated throughout the community, and anyone can comment upon the environmental analysis, and we will have that opportunity to comment. And it'd be up to staff and the board, our board, to figure out or to suggest or make what recommendations and what kind of comments we would like to make in that environmental impact report.
And do you use national standards as a threshold as to where things are deficient?
Yes.
And kind of say, well, look, this is where we're supposed to be and we're not there, so something needs to happen.
Yes.
Okay. And is on the flip side, could the developer say, hey, well, we're giving you Quimby fees. That's your problem. We're giving you the money. You guys figure that out.
Yeah, because that's all they're required to do is land and or fees.
Okay.
So they say, well, I gave you the money, and so then that's in the early days of vacant land and whatever that, it was like, here's some money, and we would go buy a park, across the street from the neighborhood or whatever that satisfies that acreage need.
Okay. And so then if that were the case, we collect a pot of money and yet there just is no land to be purchased, we're just going to end up having to be deficient, and then we just enhance what we have.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
That's correct. And then with that too, one of the points we're trying, I think you had mentioned it also, we're trying to get ahead of the game. That, instead of as things are being built, like they're talking 299, we just got our Quimby fee from that last week. That I'd rather know ahead of time that this is what's going to happen, and so let's plan for it rather than being reactive to it.
Okay. No, I appreciate that, and I know we're asking, well, I'm asking lots of questions, and probably a lot of it is just out there somewhere without a whole lot of concrete answers. But I do appreciate the effort to going through this for a little bit of conversation, a little bit of anticipation, and just kind of knowing what the options are.
Yeah,
Because
right.
It'll be piecemeal as it comes along. Is how
Exactly.
best
We were just
address
trying
it.
to set the table, and the board will be very involved as we go along. And if we can successfully go towards some goal, there might be some options and some variety, different things we can do, and we'll definitely keep the board involved in those decision-making processes and see how we can best accomplish our goals.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, Director Nichols, for the questions. Director Huffer.
Just a couple of what I hope are very brief comments. I have to go back to Jim's initial comments about the likely pressure on the city, whether it's from the county or for the state, for significant increase in housing units, and the fact that we're sort of focusing on the boulevard here, but the point that Director Nichols made, that it's going to be in the entire community, and whether it's 900 more units or 1,900 more units or whatever it is, it's almost certainly not going to all be on the boulevard. So there's a limit to what kind of detailed planning we can do, because we don't know what zone, we don't know what planning area it's going to fall into. But having this information and sort of as a wake-up call for the board that we need to start thinking about that is certainly critical. The other piece of it is that, Tom threw out some sort of scary numbers. We're up to what, worst case 35, if we have 2,000 new units, $35 million, something like that. What's a few tens of millions of dollars among friends? But that is on top of what we've already talked about, and the aging infrastructure of the district, and the fact that we've got to come up with some way of financing either major improvements or replacement of Conejo Community Center and Thousand Oaks Center and some of the other centers. So the financing, not just for new development, but for our existing structures is absolutely critical. We talked about it before. Obviously, this is horrible timing right now, but somewhere in another year or two, we need to start looking at that really big time. So,
Thank you, Director Huffer. Any other comments or questions? And your statement about kind of a wake-up call, making us aware of the needs and giving us the opportunity to work with the city and other organizations and doing something, I think that's not only exciting, but it's obviously beneficial for the future residents, for the future of the Conejo Valley. And if we are serious about doing the right things in reference to the needs for parks and play and recreation, et cetera, I think this is an opportunity for us right now, 5 board members, to make our mark in the community. So thank you, staff. Again, Tom. What? No.
Just a few million.
Anyway, no. Okay, if there are no more comments or questions, we've got a recommendation before us, and I'd entertain a motion at this time. Come on, Mr. Director Nichols.
I'll be happy to make that motion, Mr. Chair. I would, in fact, like to direct staff to work with residents, City Thousand Oaks, property owners, and developers within the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan area to formulate strategies to satisfy park acreage needs in the TOB specific plan area. And I'd like to just add on to that, as well as other areas deemed to incorporate additional housing subject to the development and approval of the Thousand Oaks General Plan.
I'm glad you specifically pointed it out, although we understood. Okay, and Director Huffer,
I'd
that's
like
a
to second that motion as amended by Director Nichols.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any more comments, questions associated with this item? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, that motion will pass. We're moving on to item 10, reports and announcements. We had 10A and 10B. Are there any questions or comments associated with those? If not, we're moving on to department reports. Tom, as if you haven't already spoken a lot this evening.
Just a couple things.
Sure.
Just let you know that we have finished the paving project with the city of in conjunction partnership with the city of Thousand Oaks. We finished everything that needed to be done with our 11 different parking lots that we did. They finally put in the speed bumps were the last thing to put in at Orchard and Canal Creek North. So that project is complete. And actually we paid the bill a few weeks ago. So we're all set with that. And then we do have some, exciting things coming up, and I will send the board when we confirm everything. But we're going to have 6 public meetings coming up in the near future on 3 different projects. We're doing some renovations at Lang Ranch Neighborhood Park that would require a neighborhood meeting, and then the dog park project. Remember, we're going to do the parking lot, the restroom, and a shade structure. We're going to have a couple meetings for that. And then the Caneo Community Park Assessment, which I mentioned before, we'll probably have 3 public meetings regarding that. And then I'll tell the board when and where, and we'll have Zoom links and all that sort of if the board want to attend any of those meetings. With that, available for questions.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Hare? Okay, we're moving on to Recreation Division.
Thank you, Chair Lane.
Michelle.
Members of the board, I am going to pass on a report tonight. Read your highlights. James did a good job. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, after looking at those recreation highlights, any questions, Rochelle? Were you going to comment on the concert in your car?
There is a 2-page
write-up.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was great. It was really nice, and it was a good turnout, and I think both of our sponsors were very happy. We had 180 tickets sold, 122 cars, I think, that attended. It was just really nice to see the young and the old and everybody in between. So it's a good time. And staff did an excellent job with weaving when we had to do something. So it was nice to be able to have a concert for the summer. So kind of end the summer with an actual concert. So, and they follow all their rules and regulations, and we were out there cleaning porta potties too. So do what we need to do.
Yep, understand. And as you know, I had the opportunity to sit and visit for about a half an hour with the Acorn representatives, Kyle Jory and Jim Rule. Thank you. And they were very pleased. And they just thought that Rec and Park District does such a great job in our community. It was very, I listened to them, and it was very gratifying to know that they really believe in the Park District and what we're doing. And they're happy to be partners with us. Okay, item C, Management Services Division.
Thank you. I'll be brief. We are wrapping up our audit, and it's been exceptionally challenging because of COVID. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Loretta and accounting, because it's been a ton of work, and trying to do it remotely with giant files was massive, but it's going well, and we're wrapping that up. And then also, as Jim mentioned, we have a couple new laws regarding COVID, and also AB5 that we're watching, and Shelley's been just a master watching all that for us. So just a shout out to them. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Melissa. Any questions? Management Services? Very good. We're moving on to General Manager's report. Mr. Friedel.
I too will be brief. I wanted to make sure I said thank you to Tom for that scholarly work. No, that was actually a lot of fun getting to see that report get built and kind of thinking through how you analyze it all. And it's just a really weird thing to know these units are looming out there and they're going to drop somewhere. We just don't know where to try to plan for that. It's just, so anyway, great job, Tom. Thank you so much. And I did want to say, and I don't know if we mentioned last time, Melissa and her team is putting a district wide staff IT committee together to kind of really dig into the weeds. Oh, and Mark's running it, of course. Yeah, to really dig into the weeds on the different types of technologies that all the different staff uses, and then that age old or that really tough decision about something totally integrated versus like the cool separate little things that do exactly what you need it to do. And that's a constant tension that Mark's got to deal with. Plus security, because like the idea that, you know, you still hear about these ransomware attacks and stuff on agencies, and what a nightmare. So the fact that we can do these crazy Zoom meetings and our computers have all worked through all the telecommuting and people doing remote stuff and audit reports with huge files, and just, it's been great. So yeah, to Mark and Melissa for getting that going, and thank you. With that, I will answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the general manager? Okay, we're moving on to E, director's reports and follow-up reports on meetings and conferences attended. Ms. Donnie, directors. Yes, Director Cusworth.
So I was at the concert, and I want to give a shout out to Rochelle and her staff. Yeah, they're out there cleaning the bathrooms. It was really fun. And I was there with my friends. We had a great time, and they were just saying they were so glad that they came. In fact, it seemed like just as fun as the regular concerts. I don't know. It was really fun. So also the Stagecoach Inn, they did open their suffrage event, and I did go see it, and it was really quite creative, because you'd think, how are you going to do an outdoor event? But what they did is that they have all of the displays indoors, but then they've opened their big double doors, so you can walk on the porch and look in at their displays. And so they really did a great job, and they're considering doing something similar for Christmas. So if you have a chance, go over and see it. I mean, I think they did a great job. So that's it.
Thank you, Nellie. Director Huffer.
Well, I too was at the drive-in concert, or the concert in the parking lot. And I told Rochelle at the time, I said, of all 5 concerts that were scheduled for this summer, this was the one that I was really glad to see, because the Doors have to be my all-time favorite 60s and 70s group. So I appreciate your working that out.
Tim must have known that.
Yeah, and it's sort of semi-related. It's partly Park District, partly city, but I just wanted to compliment Brian Stark on what he's had to deal with for the last couple of weeks, since somebody posted something on Nextdoor about weeds and mustard grass and fires and all that stuff, and Brian has been handling that absolutely perfectly. So thanks to Brian for that.
Thank you, Director Huffer. Any Director Nichols?
2 items to report. I did have a chance to meet with the general manager prior to the last board meeting, since I was going to be absent. Just want to thank him for his time and going through some of the agenda items. And then secondly, along with Director Lang, attended a Zoom meeting on the Rancho Potrero Equestrian Center, the ad hoc committee, which I thought was very productive. It was worthwhile, definitely, and I think we're heading in the right direction for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Well, both the items that I was going to comment on have already been commented on, but I'm going to expand on the concert in the parking lot. I didn't realize that Jim Rule is on the committee that helps select the performance, the group that performs.
Tim usually reaches out to all the sponsors and kind of gets what are they looking for, what are they wanting type of thing. And I guess Jim for many years has worked with Brenda, and maybe even before Brenda with Steve Wiley, on the picking out or making suggestions on who he would like to see.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware of that. And going way back when you start mentioning other people, Steve and so forth,